The House chambers described the troubling scene to reporters.
I saw all of them. About 400 to 500 completely deranged people just rambling on about guns, the military, and money.
Investigators say the lunatics, many of whom are believed to suffer from severe personality disorders, have locked themselves in the chambers for hours now, with no clear purpose or reasoning.
I looked at one of them right in the eyes, and it was like he was empty on the inside, devoid of any emotion or feeling. It was horrifying. It's only a matter of time before they do something that really hurts someone.
We believe these men to be manipulative and extremely dangerous. Luckily, they are also very disorganized, and there is a chance they may never be able to ever take any action at all. For more on this developing story, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Stu.
And on the show tonight, we have multiple things that I wanted to bring up, but of course it's Free Talk Live, so you can call that number I gave, 603-283-6160, to bring up whatever's on your mind, whatever you think is important. Tell us we're wrong, you disagree with us. It's up to you because it's Free Talk Live, but one major thing I want to talk about, I almost feel like, oh, is this a bad idea to bring it up or something? But the Wall Street Journal already posted it. It's kind of creepy. The U.S. homeland stands unguarded. The Pentagon needs to modernize its plans to defend against new threats from Russia and China. And Ian sent me this show prep, and his note he attached to it, he said, this article makes it obvious that if a private entity did the military, or privatizing the military, it couldn't possibly get any worse. It can only get better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of crazy. I think lots of people agree that the military could stand to have less intervening in other countries and just be focused more on protecting the United States. And not that I think, we should have a military funded by government, but if we have one, doing that is just like going to be better and better. We have right now people in other countries making, nation building, whatever stuff that we shouldn't be paying for, one, or meddling in and causing blowback, two. And instead, the actual homeland is being called unguarded to defend against attacks here. And let's just get into it. This is from wallstreetjournal.com. In the early 20th century, as air power advocates worked to understand the emerging role of aircraft in conflict, oh man, I forget this word, Brigadier General William Mitchell conducted a series of tests. The purpose was to demonstrate the airplane's superior capabilities for coastal defense, at that time a Navy mission. Mitchell believed that the airplane and the Army Corps were better suited to the task. In July 1921, Mitchell led the first Provisional Air Brigade from Virginia's Langley Field in bombing tests against the German captured ships and Marines. Mitchell's tests culminated in the sinking of the battleship Ostfriesland, which the Navy had believed invulnerable to air attack. Despite this demonstration of air power's efficacy, a fight between the services for primacy against attack from the sea continued for decades. The Navy and Army Air Corps conducted competing exercises to prove it could better defend the nation. Okay, I guess that's where we're at in the past. 100 years later, the U.S. faces greater threats than those in the 1920s War Department could have imagined. They contemplated attacks only from the sea and sea-based aircraft. Today, the U.S. faces threats from all domains, even flying alien balloons. If you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a pretty funny story.
The fact that it just floated on over here and no one stopped it for a really long time is kind of funny and weird. I guess it's like, oh, well, Montana, though. We don't have anything in Montana. Well, why not? I don't know.
Yeah, didn't that turn out to be Chinese, or I can't remember where that went.
They told us that it was Chinese, and they said, oh, but it was just a weather testing balloon, but still. It was like a threat for a few days or like a whole day.
Yeah, and they let it go over basically the whole country.
Yeah, I think it landed in like South Carolina. And you heard the most about it in Montana at first. And they were saying, oh, well, we couldn't possibly shoot it down in Montana because we don't have any like forces nearby in Montana.
Yeah, they always have excuses that don't make sense.
That's true. And I don't really believe it was just a weather balloon. But also, as at one point, they were reporting it could be an alien. It could be related to aliens. I don't even understand where that came out of, but it's been like a year since that happened, so. Yeah, it says 100 years later, the U.S. faces greater threats than those the 1920s War Department could have imagined. They contemplated attacks only from the sea and sea-based aircraft. Today, the U.S. faces threats from all domains. Russia and China can target American cities and infrastructure with nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missiles, wow, as well as ultra-long-range, conventionally armed land, air, sea, and submarine-launched stealthy cruise missiles. And I guess that means basically they wouldn't have to be anywhere near the United States. They can shoot it and have it land with precision somewhere in the United States without having to get very close. And they're stealthy, so maybe hard to see on radar or something.
Yeah, in theory, it would be much harder to stop one of those than a fighter jet.
And I don't like this idea in this article that's just like, oh, well, Russia and China totally want to bomb us at any opportunity they can get. I don't know that, and I hope not. But
Well, it seems like foreign policy is to get that to happen.
Maybe even articles like this. Like, that's why at first I was like, should I even cover this on the air, like bring more attention to it? But I don't know. It might have some interesting stuff to talk about in it. Beijing and Moscow have deployed weapons that can circumvent current threat warning and defensive systems. In a move some call a Sputnik moment, China recently tested a hypersonic missile that nearly orbited the globe before returning to hit a target. An additional menace are the cyber attacks that state and non-state actors regularly conduct against government and commercial infrastructure. I remember just like a year ago, there was the FCC, man, it's not the FCC, it's like the FAA. Do you know what that is? It's the
Federal Aviation something?
Yeah. So they had all their computers taken down in a cyber attack only like a year ago. I don't know about all of their computers, but I know a girl that's a Free Stater, and her husband works for the FFA or FAA, I don't remember which it is, and I asked her if it affected his job, and she was like, yeah, that was a weird day. It affected like everyone, and it was like everybody was freaking out. That seemed like something where they attacked that, and it was like, oh, things really are pretty weak, aren't they, around here?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to find out they had simultaneous tests going on and mock exercises or whatever, just like on 9/11.
Yeah. Luckily, nothing like major happened right after that, but yeah, it could just be a test they're running for the future, like, oh, well, we're going to launch this attack, or we're going to let this attack happen.
Yeah, kind of like they did Event 201, and then COVID-19 happened right after that.
Yep. We learned about that I learned about it from a caller recently. You seem to already know something about it, but basically there was some kind of a test, and this is common. I don't know if all the listeners know that, but a lot of times
this was a planned exercise they did, in I believe it was in October, before the whole quote unquote pandemic started, and they did a simulation to where they had news broadcasters talking about how it was affecting the different nations, and they had like all these
Wow.
Karens sitting around talking about what policies they should implement in order to, I don't know, make it better or worse, or who knows, but it was some kind of an exercise exactly like. They even came away with plushies that had a little virus that later looked like the computer animation they showed you and told you this is what COVID-19 looks like.
The like green ball with things coming off it.
Which, by the way, nobody has still showed me an actual electron microscope video of
Right.
COVID-19. You just get computer animations.
Just like NASA.
Yeah, NASA's been caught faking probably half of all their photos.
And then they will actually come out and say, well, the reason is it's impossible to get a picture just like that. So, of course, we use AI, or not AI, but like, we use CGI or whatever to make a picture of what it would look like. And it's like, okay, why didn't you say that from the beginning?
Exactly.
Instead of trying to pass it off as like a picture of the Earth.
Yep.
Or whatever.
That's why I like to call them never a straight answer.
Yep, that is definitely true. When I worked at a military base in Utah, one of the types of people that would check in were people with NASA emails, and they were just always like weird people. I was always like, NASA, because like I was already a flat earther. Well, I was a flat earther back then. I just don't really care anymore. I hate to say it. I just don't like want to have a belief one way or the other unless I got really good at math, and that's probably not going to happen. Anyways, I was already like, they were on my radar. So whenever I got a NASA email, I'm like checking in the guy like, whoa, what does he do? That's just weird. So are you someone who has ever been interested in learning about, the military did this in World War II and they did that in Vietnam, like studying that?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah, I'm very much interested in the history they didn't tell you in school.
What does it mean when they were saying that they had a Sputnik moment?
Sputnik was so they had the space race, and it was between the U.S. and Russia, and Russia managed to get rockets into space and up to the moon before America did, and so America
to the moon? I thought they got rockets to the moon, but they didn't get a man.
Right, America eventually became the first manned flight to the moon, if you believe that story.
Yeah, I don't really.
That or they faked it in a studio.
Yep.
One of those two things seems likely.
Okay, so I guess they're calling it a Sputnik moment because China tested a hypersonic missile, so they're saying like, oh, they got their hypersonic missile to nearly orbit the globe before returning to hit a target, so it's kind of something like, oh, we're showing the world that we can do this, and now America's going to be like, well, we want to be able to do that too, and maybe even worse, you know?
Right.
So it says an additional menace are the cyber attacks that state, and then we talked about the FFA because of that, or FAA, whatever. Drones of unknown origin fly over critical infrastructure, including military bases. The Defense Department hasn't adequately addressed these new threats. The Army, by law, responsible for ground-based air defense, has a limited ability to defend the District of Columbia and the immediate surrounding area. Most of its Patriot air defense systems are deployed or will likely be deployed overseas overseas operations, and the Army-led multi-service counter-drone effort is fielding systems that aren't well suited for domestic use. See, that seems like that's a new reason that I hadn't thought of before to be anti-war and anti-sending troops, even if they're not in a technical war, to all over the globe, is like, well, what if we get attacked and the army's in Afghanistan?
Yep.
Most of the army or whatever.
Ernest Hancock has been talking about this point lately, and he thinks we should all draw the line at if a foreign bomb falls on American soil, then we all just quit listening to the government, quit paying taxes, quit obeying altogether.
Well, why not? That's a great idea because
that is supposed to be the social contract, right?
Right.
They owe us a duty of protection for our duty of allegiance. That's what they say.
They're supposed to protect the United States, and they're not supposed to be doing all the stuff they're doing outside the United States with with the military that they, pay for in tax dollars.
They weren't supposed to have gotten involved in either of the world wars. They weren't supposed to be doing merchant marine operations to where they're forcing open markets, British Empire style.
Yep. I think that most people aren't thinking, oh, I'm a patriot and I support that crap either. I think even in like World War I and World War II, even in the textbooks and the government schools, I always learned that most people were against it, and something bad had to happen. Then more people agreed, but there were still people against it. I honestly believe probably still most people were against joining those wars. And plus the things that had to happen, like the bombing of the Lithuania. Is that what it was?
The Lusitania.
Lusitania. Okay, the bombing of the Lusitania, or the sinking of it at least, was something that they always told us in school. Oh, that made them want to join the war. That made the Americans decide, oh, now we want to join the war.
Right, but the parts they didn't tell you is that they just said it was a passenger ship to everybody who got on it. And then they packed it full of ammo and explosives and all kinds of stuff that wasn't supposed to be on the boat,
For a passenger
according to the
ship.
rules of war. Right, so it
Wow.
was considered contraband internationally. And Germany had tried their best to warn everybody to not get on the boat because they planned to sink it. And then not only that, but when the boat got to the area where German U-boats were known to be hanging out, it slowed down and went in a straight path instead of speeding up and going in a zigzag like they
Wow.
usually did.
I was gonna say, I really think that they do those events. They make them happen on purpose. Sounds like you know exactly how they made it happen. So they make something bad happen on purpose that will make people think, oh, look what Germany did to our boat with their U-boats, and it had civilians on it. Now I'm in, and I want, blood, and I want Germans to lose. So now I'm okay with America joining the war. That's just such disgusting,
Yeah,
manipulative.
it's trickery.
Yes, trickery.
And if it's supposed to be the consent of the governed, that's not informed consent. You just lied to everybody and told them the facts are otherwise than they actually are.
Yep, leaving things out can still be a lie of omission. And it seems like that's mostly what they did. And I've always heard that there was something similar with Pearl Harbor. So World War II, they got people to want to join the war, or maybe that we were already kind of in it, but still got people pumped up for being in World War II with Pearl Harbor. And I don't remember the exact facts like you were telling with not the Lithuania.
I know some of those as well, and I think the brigadier general that it was talking about in this story was the one they kind of framed for this whole thing at Pearl Harbor.
William
Where
Mitchell.
Yeah, where they ordered him to basically cripple his defense capabilities, and they knew the Japanese were coming. And
They knew, and they didn't warn.
all the planes were ordered to be parked in a circle, pointed inward, and
To where they couldn't shoot back.
to where they couldn't take off without scrambling. So like they all had to push their planes out of the circle formation before they could even get, like if you imagine a circle full of planes all pointed inward, what a mess that is to get them out onto the runway and into the air.
Do you think the people who were on the ships were like, why are they ordering us to do this even before they knew?
Yeah,
That's so weird.
And this guy Mitchell was like, "Hey, what's the deal? I'm totally incapable. If something happens, we're just gonna get destroyed here." And they're like, "That's too bad." And then they tried to blame it on him after the fact.
Wow.
And they charged him criminally with a bunch of stuff.
Wow, I did not know that. Maybe just for talking back at all, I know.
And I'm not certain it was that Mitchell guy, but the I think it was him, and whoever it was definitely was not treated fairly. He knew better. He wanted to do a better job, and they ordered him not to. And then they acted like it was his fault.
Yeah, that sounds like something they would do, especially if somebody was to speak or talk back to them, like, "Oh, you were given an order. You're not supposed to question it. You questioned it. Now we're gonna make this 10 times worse for you, especially since you didn't die like we thought you might." It says the Navy. So back to what the military is doing all across the world when they aren't here to quote-unquote defend us like you think they are. The Navy dedicates only a few on-call vessels to maritime defense, meaning peaceful times, not wartime. And since 9/11 has offered its support to Homeland Defense on a handful of occasions, instead of focusing on forward development. Even the Missile Defense Agency hasn't stepped up, focusing more on defending Guam against a ballistic missile attack from North Korea. I wonder why. I know that Guam is an ally, and there's tons of military stuff that goes on there. Tons of people I know that join the military, they're like, I'm stationed in Guam.
Yeah, it's a strategic U.S. territory.
Tons of Guamanian people live on military bases. I've met lots of them. Why is it that specifically Guam could get hit with a attack from North Korea? Like, what do they have against them? Do you know?
I'm kind of fuzzy on the whole Guam thing.
Yeah, I'm not even exactly sure where it is. But if you look up the flag of Guam, the joke is the flag of Guam is what a Guamanian sees as they're being born. You can just look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. Mitchell's Army Air Corps, which became the Air Force, was the front line of homeland defense during the Cold War. Today, it commits only a handful of predominantly Air National Guard fighters to the air defense mission for the entire North American continent. Only a handful. That is barely 1/10 of the aircraft that Mitchell had on a single base for his tests in 1921. Ground-based radars fielded in the 1980s to watch over North America are obsolete. Yeah, because it's all ground, like as if somebody's going to walk over here and harm us. The effort to replace them has been locked in an analysis of alternatives for more than a decade. Wow. The wheels of government turning slowly. The Air Force was on a path to acquire over-the-horizon radars capable of detecting approaching aircraft, ships, and cruise missiles at a range of more than 1,000 miles. So it was on a path. That project now appears stalled, while the Air Force does more studies. At the recent annual Air and Space Symposium, only one official, the commander of the North American Aerospace Defense Command and U.S. Northern Command, addressed protecting the homeland. The services are investing heavily in modernizing the nation's nuclear deterrent. Replacing the Air Force's aging Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles is estimated to cost $96 billion over the next decade. These systems were designed to deter, for one thing, if you're replacing some kind of missile, it's probably hard to sell it to someone else.
Well,
Maybe.
how much money are they spending, and how much money is that to them anyways? It's not even 1/10 of a trillion.
Yeah.
Which is what they're dealing in now.
Yeah. Don't they lose billions each year in the Pentagon anyway? Oh, well, we lost...
They're talking about how they can't even cut $2 trillion from the budget.
Oh, but the Pentagon specifically?
Just the whole United States government.
Yep. That is true.
Yeah, and the Pentagon loses trillions of dollars.
Yep, they do.
Just
Trillions? Okay, that's what I was wondering. If it was trillions or billions that they've been losing. One year we covered a story that was like end of the year, or maybe the fiscal year, the Pentagon telling us how they did, and they were like, well, we lost something in the $1 trillion this year. We don't know where it went, but that's better than last year. It was like $2 trillion. That was their, you know what, we're going to pat ourselves on the back little article. It's ridiculous. How do you lose, like $100,000? How do you lose it? Well, I guess it could get
It's
bombed.
not so much that they lost it. It's that they can't really tell you where it went because...
Black Ops?
Yeah, because that might be sensitive information, or because it had to go to some operation that needs to not be reported. So once they let that money go, they quote unquote don't know where it went.
So there's more to talk about this. I also want to talk about the shooter who shot the United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan the other day. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. Don't go anywhere. More coming up.
Fact. The new NSA data center in Utah requires 1.7 million gallons of water every single day to operate. Billions of Fourth Amendment violations need massive computers and the water to cool them. That water is being supplied by the state of Utah. Fact. There's absolutely nothing in the Constitution which requires your state to help the feds violate your rights. Our message to Utah: turn it off. No water equals no NSA data center. Visit offnow.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at the week's top stories. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city and continuing to make their way south towards the country's third largest city. FSN's Trent Murray has more.
The Syrian military has confirmed that it has withdrawn from the city of Hama as armed rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham arrived, seizing control of the strategically important city. The group's push began last week when it launched a surprise attack, seizing the second largest city of Aleppo and large swathes of territory in the north. Footage posted online by the group showed insurgents capturing several military bases, including aircraft, tanks and weapons, which had been left behind as the army fled. On Friday, the group said its fighters were pushing forward in an attempt to seize the country's third largest city of Homs, which sits just 100 miles from the capital Damascus, where President Bashar al-Assad remains, as his grip over the war-torn nation continues to weaken. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
Police in the United States were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. FSN's Sally Patterson reports.
Officers from America's largest police force are yet to track down Brian Thompson's shooter. Police say the United Healthcare CEO was walking to the company's annual investor conference at the New York Hilton Midtown early on Wednesday morning local time. A person walked up behind him and shot him. Officers found Thompson on the ground with wounds to his back and right calf. Detectives are working on piecing together a timeline of the moments leading up to the shooting and have identified surveillance footage from across the city. Police have released pictures of a person they say is wanted for questioning. Sally Patterson, New York.
South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law on Tuesday. FSN's Chris Gilbert has more.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
From Bureaus Worldwide.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Most of our hosts have been using Edge for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, that's edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. Thank you to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live, and again, to learn more, visit edge.app. With you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Stu.
And in the last segment, we were talking all about how, well, the U.S. military, although supposedly the definition of a citizen is somebody who gives their, They give their loyalty.
Allegiance for protection.
Allegiance for protection from the government. Well, looks like they're really behind on ways to defend the homeland in case of an invasion. Kind of a weird word, homeland, but the United States itself in case of an invasion. Instead, they're doing things like protecting Guam. Not that I'm saying that's necessarily like, oh, they shouldn't do that at all. Like, maybe there's other things that can cut off first. Like, oh, we're just nation building over here and protecting poppy fields over here, which I don't think they're necessarily protecting poppy fields right this second, but the DEA has military people helping them with like drug stuff they do. They literally sell drugs, and then they're like, oh, well, it's for the purpose of finding drug dealers. And it's known,
No, it's not for that purpose. It's because people want to sell drugs.
Yep, and what better way to do it than quote unquote legally with the being a part of the DEA or the US government.
Yeah. Yep. CIA, lots of those guys get involved in all of that stuff.
Yep.
And it's not just drug trades either. They're running guns and piles of cash, and they're forcing markets on normal things like bananas. And this was a thing that the Dutch sort of started doing it first, and then the British developed it with their East India companies, where they had these big circular trade routes of slaves and sugar and tea and wool, and so they had they started pushing opium, and then they got into it with China, where the Emperor of China didn't want opium sold by the British into China anymore, and he made it illegal, and some British chaps were very upset with that decision and decided they were going to force open a couple of ports with the British gunboats, and so that's how you have Hong Kong and Shanghai now. Those were 100-year leases, basically, that they said you're going to allow us these ports to run our opium into for the next 100 years, or we're just going to, blow everything up.
Yeah. It's so crazy that normal people were just sitting around doing opium back then. It was like making the Chinese lazy, and that's why hey, you're making my workers sit around and do opium instead of working, so I'm going to make that illegal. But I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to do it themselves. I'm just saying that I think that's why he didn't want it. And I've read stories or, accounts of British guys who, like, opium had gotten to Britain for, like, the first time during all that trade. I read this in Terence McKenna's book. I think it's Food of the Gods. I think this was called Food of the Gods. And the British guys were, like, describing what it was like to take opium for the first time when everything else they had really gotten into was really just, like, sugar. And they already treated that kind of like a drug. Like, it's not like they put it in everything. They were like, whoa, this is crazy. Imagine your civilization had never really touched sugar yet except honey. I think just honey, and maybe they had maple. I don't really know. But they get sugar cane, and it was like a drug to them. And it was, like, precious.
Yeah, somebody come and hand you a pound cake. That changes your whole world for sure.
Even, like, my neighbor, he avoids sugar all the time. And if I give him, hey, I made cookies, do you want one? Sometimes he'll be like, yeah, I avoid sugar most of the time. I'm going to, give myself this as a treat. And then he'll report back to me how he went on a run all around the town afterwards. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy, because I, like, drink so much sugar. It doesn't do that to me anymore. I like caffeine. But I guess that was just kind of a side story. It reminded me of the British dudes being like, whoa, you won't believe this, writing it down in their little ink quills, talking about what opium was like. But yeah, people should be allowed to try those things out themselves, and also if their government shouldn't be stopping them from doing it. But if they're going to stop them from doing it, of course what they're really going to do is use their black ops government sectors, not necessarily black ops, but like CIA and stuff like that, to go and be the bad guys selling it. And if they get caught, they tell you, oh, well, you see, we had to be the bad guys selling it so that way we could catch the brown bad guys. That guy's a Colombian drug dealer. We were helping to find him, and you're just thinking to yourself, oh, well, weren't you guys actually selling cocaine with him, though, before you quote unquote got the bad guy? Well, yeah, well, we had to do that. You don't understand. It's operation, it's safety. We have to do it for like years for a while and gain his trust or whatever.
Right.
Nope, they're just making tons of money. And actually, I wish that I had thought to ask David Hathaway to call in about this. Not that I really knew we were going to talk about this tonight, but David Hathaway, the sheriff in Arizona, I forget what exact town that is right now. Do you know?
I forgot which county it is. It's along the southern border, though.
My brother lives there too. I forgot, but he's a kind of like a renegade statesman, or I don't know if you call a sheriff a statesman, but I like that term from Eric Brakey from the Free State Project. It's a good way to differentiate. Like, yeah, I'm being a state house representative right now, but it's not because I'm a statist. I'm a renegade statesman. I'm in there to mess stuff up. But that's basically what David Hathaway is doing, being a sheriff in Arizona. But he used to be DEA before he really woke up to stuff. And I'm just surprised that they let him, go and write books and talk to people about it, and they don't do anything to him. I'm not trying to say I think that will happen or anything, but they quote unquote probably don't like that he goes out and tells the truth about what he saw with the DEA.
Yeah.
And it would be cool if we called in and talked about that, since we've brought it up.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy, David Hathaway.
You could tell that the judge, when he went and spoke to the judge in Ian's case, you could tell that the judge was annoyed with him. And I think, and me and Ian talked about this, we both think he got just extra annoyed with David Hathaway for saying nothing insulting or rude, because it's and you're a cop. You should be on our side. How dare you?
Didn't fit into his worldview.
Exactly. That just blew his mind. Seriously. I totally believe that. So I wanted to talk about this whole shooting that happened. So there was a shooting. I guess I clicked on the wrong one, but I'm going to get to the right one. There was a shooting in Manhattan, and I wanted to read this Wall Street Journal opinion article about it, but also just talk about it. So I was in Manhattan only less than 8 hours before it happened, and I've never been there before, so it was a really weird thing. He went to he went outside of this hotel where a convention was happening. He looks like a guy to me. They haven't absolutely discerned that yet, or confirmed that he's a dude, but you can kind of tell he is, because they have CCTV pictures, and he has a hood, but you can still see his face. And one thing that's really funny is that right when I saw him, I was like, oh wow, he's really handsome. And everybody on Twitter is saying the same thing. They're free him. I don't care what he did, free him, etc. And that's hilarious. But what he did, I watched the video, and I never really watch videos of oh, somebody got killed and there's a video. Have you seen it on Twitter yet? Usually I'm no way, I'm not going to watch that. But it's not very gory. It's not gory really at all. And it's just such it's a different situation to most shootings. So it's kind of interesting. This guy went to where he knew a healthcare in general convention was happening. And it seems targeted. He had a silencer and a pistol. And people I've talked to have said that is a really uncommon gun to murder with for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he just walks right up to the guy right in front of buildings, right on the sidewalk, only 5 feet away. And the guy's walking in front of him, away from him, not running from him, but just walking. And then he shoots him 5 times. Somebody even has commented that it looks like the gun jams, and he knew what to do to unjam it and then continue shooting 2 more times. He didn't even just turn around and go back the way he came from. He kept going almost calmly.
Yeah.
It was definitely, in my opinion, it seems like a professional person. And it didn't make me think, oh, I have to drive through New York the next day. I'm scared because it seems so targeted. This guy wanted to kill him. He was out to
get one specific guy.
Yeah. And I am not going to be one of those people who celebrates that this guy died because he's a healthcare CEO. But I wish that it makes me feel like this guy definitely should have done something else. I just don't think that, I think that what Dave Ridley says is true, that violence begets more violence, and it doesn't solve any of his problems for him.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But am I sad that this guy who's done so much wrong in his life, and I just know he has, because the healthcare industry is it's the 3rd leading cause of death. maybe not healthcare as in the insurance, but the doctors that they have to deal with. It's so incredibly regulated, and they don't allow people to think outside of the group, and it's controlled with the American, I don't remember what that's called either. I'm not one of those people who can just remember what every acronym stands for. Ian is so good at that, it like blows my mind. Actually, I think it's a guy thing, but it's the ADA, I think, the American Doctors Association, maybe. Yeah, those people are like horrible. They just decided one year, this is what we're gonna say is correct healthcare, and anything outside of that, we're not even gonna explore it. We're gonna kill Wilhelm Reich for, I mean, it's not proven that he got killed, but we're gonna burn all Wilhelm Reich's books for curing cancer, and anybody who does anything outside of allopathic medicine, well, they're not gonna be covered under this guy's healthcare. Tons of people die because, well, my wife needs this to this thing, and it might help save her. Nope, not going to be covered, denied. One thing that I learned about this, I'm not sure if it will be covered in this article, is that there was something on an inscription on the actual shell casings. Ian told me this, that said something like denied and 2 other D words. And the reason that that's on there is because those are 3 common words that the health and insurance people will give somebody when they're denying your claim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so clearly and obviously that he wanted to, it's so clear and obvious that he wanted to kill Brian Thompson, the CEO.
Right.
Not just kill someone and go around on a killing spree. Somebody at the Valley Forge city center, or visitor center, I went to Valley Forge while I was in Pennsylvania, was telling us, she just seemed like a mom or something. She was like, yeah, and then he went and rode one of those, those scooters in cities?
Yeah.
That you can just pick up and use an app to drive away?
Yep.
She was saying that he went and rode one of those and used a credit card. So that seems pretty dumb if true.
Yeah, maybe. Could be just prepaid card that you got at Walmart.
That's a good point. But she was like, oh my God, he's going to get caught because of that. I was like, that seems crazy. I want more information on that.
Yeah, It seems like, planned it. If I was planning it, I would have thought of that. So.
Yeah, he did a lot of other things in cash and stuff, so I don't think it's true. We'll get into it. It says, America's social media culture is often debased, but it reached a new low this week with the online jubilation over the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Oh, another reason to hate the medical industry is I didn't really finish. There's so many. Just everything with COVID, period. And then the fact that if you work in medical, almost anything, but definitely healthcare, as in insurance, well, you're just okay with the government and you having this deal to shut everyone else out. And, because it's so socialized in the United States, and people like to say it's not.
Yeah, it's one of the most blatant monopolies going on in the American system.
It's a person doing multiple bad things every day when I know he's a healthcare CEO. I don't care that I don't know all the details.
Yep. Yeah, and for me, I can separate the guy's immoral life choices from his death and not be happy that he was murdered. But and it's okay to be happy that he's no longer doing that, but somebody else is going to do it.
That's such a good point. That's a really good point, because I don't feel like this was some kind of I don't think that this was somehow really effective and is going to help us because the healthcare industry is so bad. It just took out one guy and someone's just going to replace him, like you said.
Oh yeah, so I'm sure the position's already been filled.
One thing I thought right away, and I've kind of changed my mind, is, well, at least these people will be scared to be bad, but I don't think they are. I think that there's too many of them. Too many people don't understand what's even going on. It's like they break their arm and they're just like, whatever, I'll sign up, whatever you want me to sign because I need my arm fixed. Obviously. Don't really blame them for that. I don't think this is some kind of, well, now they're going to be scared and they're just going to start being good. I don't know. I don't really think violence is good, or terrorism.
Nope, I don't think so either.
I don't think it works either. I wonder if Skeeter's going to call in and say, when are you libertarians going to learn that terrorism is good or something?
Violence is the only way.
Yeah. I listened to Skeeter's manifesto, I guess you'd say, and it was such nonsense.
I bet.
We could talk more about that. It was a 4-minute video, so anybody can listen to it. But at least it was a video of him just laying out what he believes very badly, but still.
Was it coherent at all?
No, not
No?
really. I
Okay.
definitely zoned out for a lot of times, so I need to listen to it again. But the main thing he said is, well, there's evolution, right? So obviously, since we exist and before we were, lesser beings, the goal of evolution is to create a perfect man. And there's basically nothing else to say about it. He basically said that.
Yeah. Well, if he has good ideas, he needs to team up with somebody who's got skills in language and help him put them down in a coherent manner on paper so that people know what he's talking about, because he makes absolutely no sense.
It didn't make much more sense listening to it in the video either, but maybe we can play it on there. That'd be funny. But back to the CEO, this United Healthcare CEO. So, this guy, this writer for the Wall Street Journal is where I'm reading this from. It just says by the editorial boards. I guess it's like all of them are writing this. They're upset about the online jubilation over the murder of this guy, and they say the moral perversity is a sign of the ugly times, all the more so because it targets private insurers for problems largely caused by government. Okay, but they basically are not even private. There's
a very fascist relationship.
Right. You're not even in that industry at all thinking, oh, I'm just a private insurer and like I don't have to toe the line of the government. You do anything that they tell you. I'm sure that they took government money. Wait, of course they do. They take, Medicare and all that stuff.
They were doing, I think, the majority of the government's healthcare contracts. Mm-hmm. The Medicaid and Medicare and
also I just looked up, as soon as I heard this, I'm like riding in the car, we heard all about this. I Googled United Healthcare part of Obamacare, and it was just like basically yes, like most of it is Obamacare, or they're Obamacare compliant, and most of what they do is through Obamacare. And then there's also Medicare and all that other stuff that is related. But Biden beat Medicare.
That's what I heard, yes.
He beat Medicare. But it's still out there somehow. So the writers of this are saying, "Oh, this is such a bad thing. These people are perverse for being okay with this CEO dying." And I just think it's wow, what a reaction. They don't, I don't see articles written like this whenever the government's doing all this immoral stuff that they do. So it's just kind of like silly to get so upset about it, especially when most people are just tweeting out of their butt. Like today I told a couple people that their cats are retarded. It's not like I really like mean it that much because they were getting all mad at me for being pro outdoor cat. I was just like, your cats can be outdoor and be fine, and besides they want to be outdoors, why tell them no? And I got like a bunch of like responses, my cat doesn't want to go outside, because that's how people respond. If you say anything, they're like, well, I have this one like situation, this one anecdotal evidence, and it's so stupid. So I was just replying to everyone, oh, then your cat is retarded. Oh, then your cat is retarded. My whole point in that is to say, oh, they think it's such a sign of perverse, ugly times that people were saying things about the CEO Brian Thompson dying. You can't really take them that seriously, like tweets and stuff.
Yep. On the cat thing, that's today's version of yo mama jokes. You want to really trigger somebody, you talk about their cat if they have one.
That's pretty funny. Oh, I guess that is definitely true. And the thing is, I like cats. I also just think it's silly to like judge other cat owners because they have an outdoor cat. We had outdoor cats like my whole entire childhood, and yeah, some of them died. Some of them literally got hit by cars, but they were so happy, and they would be so sad if they never got to go outside. So,
oh yeah, because they get to run around and kill birds and all kinds of stuff.
And that's another thing people are mad about. They're like, well, it destroys the ecosystem. I'm pretty sure they can survive one cat. Or I mean, not even just one cat. I'm pretty sure the ecosystem will survive cats because they just adapt and move around. Cats can fly.
To some degree. They had a problem with them in Australia to where it actually was jacking up their ecosystem.
They should definitely kill more things in Australia. They have like giant spiders. Kill more things there.
Well, it was killing, I don't know, birds and
Get
whatever.
rid of the kangaroos. Those things are evil.
Kangaroos do kind of creep me out too.
Yeah. Actually, the thing is, like, they're cute as babies, but yeah, they can box people. They've drowned people and dogs.
Yeah, you look at the pictures of the big male ones that are all yoked up.
Yes, yes.
They look like they've been in the gym.
Yes, they really do. And if you like put boxing gloves on them, they could seriously kill people. Well, I mean, I think they do kill people just by punching them.
Well, they kick with their feet. That's where they're real dangerous.
They do literally look like they've been in the gym, and they creep me out. But I brought up the cats just to say, yeah, like, you don't have to take the internet that seriously. Like, I don't even, I don't think that most people would even be saying half the stuff they said if it wasn't, like, just funny and getting you savage points, kind of, like, just to be like, oh, I'm savage, kill more CEOs, blah, blah, blah. Not that I believe that. I was just giving an example. But whatever, that's the main idea that they're saying here in the Wall Street Journal. But we're going to get more into this article. The unidentified shooter's motive still isn't known, but he may have dropped a hint with the words deny, defend, depose on his bullet casings. This mantra was popularized by trial lawyers suing private insurers for denying claims more than a decade ago. Social media mobs are exploiting the tragedy and proclaiming that Thompson had it coming. So that they didn't really explain what that meant, but I kind of already did. I just didn't remember the words. So deny, defend, depose are things that will be on the paperwork when, like, you're writing, hey, my wife needs a wheelchair, she has no legs, and your insurance gives their reasoning why they're not going to cover it, even though you pay into them. And they use those words a lot. So obviously deny is obvious, but apparently defend and depose are also words that they'll use in those situations. They don't want to let you go try a experimental drug that might save you, and then you die and your family's upset about it. Well, they have all this legal protection, and they have all their reasonings why they couldn't help you, or actually caused you to not be able to get help, like in the UK. Sure, that happens here in the United States.
Yeah, it's their job to deny your claim.
Yep, definitely. It's a really messed up, or you could even say perverse or debased system they have going there. And if it was all actually private and not fascist, like you said, I think that the incentives would be a lot better.
You might pay a system to keep you healthy instead of to keep you sick.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160. Call in with whatever is on your mind. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at the week's top stories. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city and continuing to make their way south towards the country's third largest city. FSN's Trent Murray has more.
The Syrian military has confirmed that it has withdrawn from the city of Hama as armed rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham arrived, seizing control of the strategically important city. The group's push began last week when it launched a surprise attack, seizing the second largest city of Aleppo and large swathes of territory in the north. Footage posted online by the group showed insurgents capturing several military bases, including aircraft, tanks and weapons, which had been left behind as the army fled. On Friday, the group said its fighters were pushing forward in an attempt to seize the country's third largest city of Homs, which sits just 100 miles from the capital Damascus, where President Bashar al-Assad remains, as his grip over the war-torn nation continues to weaken. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
Police in the United States were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. FSN's Sally Patterson reports.
Officers from America's largest police force are yet to track down Brian Thompson's shooter. Police say the United Healthcare CEO was walking to the company's annual investor conference at the New York Hilton Midtown early on Wednesday morning local time. A person walked up behind him and shot him. Officers found Thompson on the ground with wounds to his back and right calf. Detectives are working on piecing together a timeline of the moments leading up to the shooting and have identified surveillance footage from across the city. Police have released pictures of a person they say is wanted for questioning. Sally Patterson, New York.
South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law on Tuesday. FSN's Chris Gilbert has more.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a new initiative by the British government to try and do something about spiralling energy bills. They're proposing to allow people who live near electricity pylons either to pay nothing at all for their energy or substantially discounted rates. It's all part of an effort to encourage people to stop causing delays to the construction of new pylons that are needed to expand the country's grid. The UK is poised to offer what the government calls community benefits to households in the path of electricity pylons, wind farms and solar arrays. Sam Richards is the chief executive of Britain Remade, a campaign promoting economic growth.
The reason why all of our bills went up by so much over the last few years after Putin's invasion of Ukraine is because we haven't built enough energy in this country. We're still reliant on gas for about half of our power, and about half of that is imported. So we're going to have to build a lot more infrastructure over the next 5 years. And I think it is reasonable that the communities that host this infrastructure should benefit from it. So I think the government's proposition, or what they're looking at now, is to be welcomed.
Not everyone agrees, and the governing Labour Party could face opposition to the idea from within its own ranks. The government is planning to build 620 miles of new electricity transmission lines by the end of the decade, a goal only achievable if planning delays can be steamrolled. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The week's top stories again. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city. U.S. police were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. And South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law. That is the latest feature story news. Iris.
In this week's Onion Tips section, 5 easy ways to adapt your deplorable and parasitic existence for the upcoming Armageddon. Tip 1. Focus on preparing your home for any number of disaster situations, which still probably won't take your mind off of your impending death or the myriad mistakes you made in your short, pitiful life. Tip 2. Make sure your linens are clean prior to the upcoming catastrophe, as these are likely the very same sheets on which you will soon be slowly asphyxiated. Tip 3. Take some time off work and spend your last days free from the bonds of the oppressive machine that was just about the only thing giving you a purpose to your otherwise insignificant days. Tip 4. Spend your final waking minutes before the end of the world with your family, knowing full well you'd rather be doing a number of other gratifying yet completely depraved things. Right, sicko? In other news, a smitten foot fetishist thinks these may be the two. A woman and her gay best friend go on another one of their little adventures, and a dead daughter would have wanted a $220 million liability settlement.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. We have some callers on the line, but there's still room for you. 603-283-6160 is the phone number. You can bring up whatever is on your mind. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash with bitrefill.com, where you can buy gift cards from big retailers including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
Stu.
And let's go to the phones. We have Jet. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Well, all kinds of things, but I'll try to keep it relevant to today. I was looking over this thing about the president and other people with titles and having special not abilities but special rights, privileges, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I always say? I say that the people with titles have no more right and privilege, than anybody else. But is there any better example of the fantasy and magic, the sorcery of this thing we call government than this thing called pardons?
Pardons?
I mean, the idea that someone with a special title can somehow wave a wand, or I'm not sure what they use for their sorcery, but all of a sudden someone who has done something wrong can magically just be forgiven. I mean,
well,
traditionally, we all had that power.
Traditionally, a wand is made out of Hollywood, just so you know.
The other thing about it is it's similar to plea deals, because it's like, oh, well, you're telling me this person did something really, really bad, but you can just make a deal with them to make it all go away, so that way you get your pound of flesh. That seems immoral if we're supposed to believe all this stuff that person did is actually wrong.
Or you could pay some money and it'll all go away. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about this particular pardoning situation that happened was that it was like retroactive back to like 2015. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, if you can pardon somebody for things that they haven't been accused of even lately, not even convicted, why can't you just pardon somebody into the future? Like, you have complete immunity to do whatever you want in this life. I mean, it to me is just magical. And which brings me to the concept of human law in the first place. Now, I see human law in 4 different categories. But let's start with the first one. That's referred to as mala en se, and that essentially means a crime unto itself. The obvious crimes of hurting someone, destroying property, doing something that is obviously wrong to do as a human. Then this last century, we've progressed into this thing called mala prohibita, which simply means it's wrong because we said so. Those are things like, anything from traffic law to
drug prohibition,
tax law, prohibition, whatever. But I've come up with a third and fourth categories. The third one in my mind is what I call mala prohibita. Mala produbita, which means you may not do, or you have to do something, or you may not do something. Okay, the example there would be seatbelts and helmets. For example, you have to do something, otherwise you are committing a crime. But then I thought,
tax kind of is that one too.
I think there's evolving this latest form I'm going to call mala en mensa, which means thought crime. Crimes of the mind. More and more people are being accused and convicted of those types of things. So, but I wanted to mention, first of all, that human law really is nothing but the opinions of a very small group of people, typically a legislature of, 100, 200, something like this, and then half of them at that. So only 50% of this very small number of people get to make up this rule. Then all of a sudden, 300 million people are being held account for this. I just love to show
those 40 people said so,
Yeah, so don't those things really show that this thing we call government is nothing but a fiction and a fantasy? It's just all in our mind to be able to think that, except when they pull out their guns. That's about it.
I think that is a pretty good example, and it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and I learned about diplomatic immunity, and how if you had this special magical title of diplomatic immunity, you were basically allowed to break all the laws of the country you were in.
So you do kind of have the future protection if you're a diplomat that he was talking about. It's kind of funny because it's like Hunter Biden pardoned his son for anything he may be found to have done any crime against the United States in the last 11 years. And I think it might have even been Ben Jett that when the caller called in about it might have been Major Payne. They were saying, why not make it forever? It's just as ridiculous.
And he's not really doing anything outside of the rules that were already set up for the stupid game that they're playing anyways. But
what do you mean?
He's not breaking any of the official rules by doing so.
Oh.
But he is being a big hypocrite because he said he wasn't going to.
Yeah, that's true. Even if it is their official rules, it's just such a ridiculous rule. It's just it's totally the case that judges can change their rules at any time. So basically, number one rule in at least New Hampshire law is that the rules can all be waived at any time that the judge finds that it's necessary. That's rule number one.
Yep, that's just like Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, rule number one, there are no rules. It's crazy.
Yep, I make up the rules.
Yep, it's my court. This is my court.
Oh, that's another whole realm of the magic and fantasy. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if maybe a lot of us could get a hold of this? Yeah, Legal Land, this magic potion thing, what did you say, the wormwood? What was that?
Magic wands are made out of Hollywood.
Holly?
Just like, Los Angeles, Hollywood.
Yep, just like where they make magic on the silver screen.
Okay,
yep.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit strange, but wouldn't it be great if maybe some of us could have, if not all of us could have this magic power? We just walk down the street and go, poof, poof, you're forgiven. You're forgiven. Everyone's forgiven. We're all going to heaven. Hey.
Wait a second. Why don't we just have Catholic priests do it? I mean, Catholic, the ones that they listen to the confessions.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, religion has been discredited. Something. It's now, the technicians that have all the authority. You got to listen to the guy in the lab coat nowadays.
Yep. They're the new priest class.
Yeah, so I've done my duty. I just want more people to come to this realization that these people are just other failed flesh and blood humans who really have no right to do what they do. So
I agree. And I thank you for the call, Jet.
Yep, thanks for bringing the attention to the adult pretend time.
Yeah. Legal Land is what Mark Stevens calls it, and in the whole entire book, The Adventures in Legal Land, he just points out, oh my god, it's like every single page he points out like 4 absurdities, things that both of these two things can't be true, right? Well, they are in Legal Land.
Yeah, such wild contradictions that anybody should just be able to look at it and say that it can't work this way, but that's how they maintain that it actually works.
In all kinds of words that it's like, oh, well, outside of Legal Land, you think this means this, right? Well, in Legal Land, this means that, and that means this.
That's right. So get your copy of the Black's Law Dictionary and relearn all the English words.
Yep, they're not speaking English.
For example, the word reset means to knowingly receive stolen goods.
Reset?
Yes.
Wow. That's what they tried to... This is so ridiculous. My sister's crazy, and she called the police in another town. She lives in Texas. My cousin lives in Alabama, and she just reported to them. My cousin claims it's not true, that she just happens to have the same dress as my sister, and she posted a picture with that dress on that is like from Target. And my sister called the police in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and said, my cousin stole my dress, and it's not even worth $20 probably. It's an old dress too. If it even is the same dress, I don't know. And they went to my grandma's house. They were like, is so-and-so here? And she was like, yeah. And they arrested my cousin, and they didn't tell her why the whole time. And then when they finally told her what she was being charged with, it was knowingly receiving stolen goods. And then, which doesn't even make sense. So they just dropped it all. And she, she's like a girl working every single day to make ends meet type of stuff. So she's not looked into Legal Land, never had to in the past. And I mean, but if you live in a police state like Alabama, maybe you should, but, doesn't have the money to sue them.
Yeah. The whole system was never supposed to be dependent on lawyers, which are basically translators for people who don't know all of the tricks and double definitions for words.
I just had to hire a lawyer yesterday, and I'll talk more about that as it happens. I absolutely love court activism. I'm super excited for this. I'm obviously going to film everything that I can, but it's regarding the Shire Free Church and defending the Shire Free Church, so it's going to be really fun, but I find it fun, but it's fun and just like, wow, look how ridiculous this is. That's why I made my video contesting a parking ticket. The main thing I want people to get away with from watching that ticket or that video is, number one, there is a literal path to not having to pay parking tickets if you watch that video and do what I did. And number two is just look how ridiculous all of this is. It's all so absurd. And these people are just human beings. They're actually parasites and goons. The cops who arrest people are the goons, and the parasites and despots are the judges. And a lot of them are killers.
They all know it's quite silly, but they all have to pretend like it's not silly. Otherwise,
in fact, it's like holy.
Right, and they really have to keep that act up. Otherwise, their job is illegitimate. They're not really providing a service. They're just sitting around having a stupid club.
And then sometimes it feels like they really have like convinced themselves that it is serious and holy. Like when I went to your trial, and then my batteries ran out and I didn't get to post it. It was really entertaining though. But basically, right before it started, one of the cops that had arrested you came up and yelled at you for wearing a hat before proceedings even started. I think he has convinced himself, like, no, this is like a holy room. You can't be wearing a hat.
Well, it was the bailiff. He asked me take my hat off, and I asked him if it was a place of worship, and he just looked at the ground and walked over to the court clerk or whoever that is, behind the stand that does the paperwork stuff, and whispered something to her. I imagine it was put this guy last, and then when some of the state troopers told me to take my hat off, the bailiff just kind of told him, "Hey," and shook his head at them.
Whoa, really? So did you never have to take it off?
I never had to take it off, but I did eventually take it off.
So, one other thing, I thought I heard him say something like, "Do you talk to your mom like that?"
Yeah, well,
what was
so
that?
one of the state troopers turned around after they were told to leave me alone. One of them turned around and came back to me and said, "The reason you take your hat off is the same reason you don't cuss at your mom."
Wow. What the heck?
It's a matter of respect.
Yeah, you're supposed to respect this courtroom as if you like the same way you respect your mother who gave birth to you.
Right.
That's how these people actually feel in
But on the
their
note of
courtroom.
On the note of double definitions, the Latin root of the word respect means to look again at something, and so I did look again at the situation for about 5 minutes, during which time I kept my hat on, and then I decided to take it off because I didn't want to hurt the poor little puppy's feelings.
Wow.
I mean, that's what these guys are. They're trained dogs. They don't really think much more than Coconut does.
Yeah. In fact, I think that he has more capability for love than they do because they are letting it get destroyed. So 603-283-6160 is the phone number. It's Free Talk Live, so you can bring up whatever's on your mind, and you can even call in if you're Skeeter. What's on your mind, Skeeter? By the way, I am already a perfect man.
Crazy.
By the way.
No,
I'm already perfected. I am evolutionary.
You got it wrong,
well,
buddy.
what is the definition? That's the whole problem with your stupid 4-minute video, is you talk about how we're working towards a perfect man, as in human, I guess.
No, Skeeter's big on ideas, not definitions.
Yeah, that's so true.
No, I'm totally big on definitions, unlike libertarians and libertarian theory. But evolution's goal is not humanity. We're just a stepping stone to this greater being.
Then you need to change your manifesto video. Oh, I see. You just call it, okay, human. You call it a greater being, and you're saying maybe we will be like its ancestors and become it, but still, what?
Yeah.
When will evolution know, all right, now it's perfect?
Unfortunately, it's almost asymptotic goal. Like it seems almost impossible theoretically. Like this perfect being needs to perfectly utilize energy with no waste, and that kind of violates physical laws that we know of, like the second law of thermodynamics.
But why would it need to do that? Why? Where is this like requirement? How are you defining perfect as, well, uses energy with no waste without, or with what knowledge are you saying that would make something better, or that would make something perfect? Like, I could just say, I think that humans are perfect as they are, and it's such an opinion that's a really silly thing to base your whole entire ideology on, and especially if it's unknowable, like you just said.
Well, you're right now, you're just criticizing human law. It's far from perfect, isn't it? You're just criticizing the human legal system.
Yes, I don't actually have that opinion, Skeeter. I was saying I could say that, well, humans are perfect right now. How are you going to counter that when it's all based on your silly opinion that's like, whatever you want?
The definition of a perfect being is just an immortal thing, right? It doesn't need to be human. It doesn't need to be one being.
Okay, rock.
Right? It can be a society. It can be made of rocks. It just has to.
I'm telling you, rock already exists. It doesn't die. It just gets crushed up and turned into new things.
No, rocks are not inherently stable. So
I just told you it gets turned into different things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't die.
It needs to be. So evolution's trying to create a complex thing.
So there's another part of this definition of perfect that is so arbitrary. It's arbitrary. Like, well, it has to be organic, unlike a rock. A rock isn't technically alive, even though Tesla said they are alive. It doesn't need to
be organic. It doesn't need to be organic.
You just said that has to live forever.
Yeah, but how does that necessarily mean organic?
Organic means living.
I mean, it can be AI.
Inorganic is like a
Terminator.
rock. Organic is living. You said it needs to live forever. Create no waste.
When I said
Those
live,
are
I
your
meant
things.
quote unquote live. You know,
Okay,
live
then
I
fine, a
meant
rock.
A complex acting being. Like something
Why
that
would it be?
utilizes
See, it's
energy
still
in order to
arbitrary because the
perpetuate
idea
itself.
that it can't change into something else is just like, well, it seems that that's the way the universe is set up. Energy can't be destroyed, matter can't be destroyed or created, just changes. So it seems like
So
we
it
already
has to
have
be-
perfection based on your definitions.
I can define it in a more scientific way. It's a being that can violate the second law of thermodynamics.
And why?
A
Why is
being
that
doesn't
perfect? What?
Generate entropy.
Who decided that? Who decided?
Evolution.
That's what you don't know that because evolution has not shown that it's working towards making something like that happen. It can't talk to you.
Let me explain, Bonnie. Dang. So my ethical, moral, and economic theory suggests that evolution has a goal, right? And you not only can you see evolution's goal through evidence just by looking out what's happening through its natural selection process and the evolutionary process, which extends beyond biological evolution. I'm talking about universal Darwinism. I call it general evolution. Richard Dawkins and other people call it universal Darwinism, right? That's the evolution I'm talking about. But you can even deduce evolution's goal using game theory, not praxeology, not the voodoo of praxeology in Austrian economics. I'm talking about a real analytical behavioral tool called game theory. You can actually mathematically deduce it, or at least I suspect it can be done, right? This is where I come in.
Yeah, I know. You're not claiming that you know this, but it's a really silly thing
I'm claiming it can be deduced.
It's a really silly thing
can
to
be
base your
proved.
whole... Oh, you just said you don't know, and yet you are saying it can be proved. Those two things don't go together.
The deduction hasn't been done yet. Right now I can intuitively feel the general solution. It's kind of obvious, right? You can just do simple thought experiments, right? If you have something even inorganic.
Simple thought
and you have, like,
experiments
an
are much different than calculating and knowing, like you just said.
But let's just take this for granted. I want to get to a part where so evolution has this goal to create this perfect evolutionary being, right? A complex being that can utilize energy perfectly to perpetuate itself.
I will accept that
kind of like the definition
as a given for your thought experiment.
So assuming that it's the goal, this is how we can look at things to explain things. Why it's a tool, it's an analytical lens how you can explain why it gave us money, why it gave us capitalism, which is the most stable system. Not anarcho capitalism, I'm talking about capitalism. So this is where my theory goes into economics, right? It's selecting for pure capitalism, a system based purely on one motive, right? That helps us build toward this, I call it the PEB, right? The perfect evolutionary being, right? Profit, right? Forget non-aggression, all moral value. So all value, yeah.
So just one part of what you already said. You're saying evolution gave us capitalism and not anarcho-capitalism, but I don't really think anywhere on the planet really has, like, just straight up has normal capitalism right now, so you can't even really claim that. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Skeeter claims to be the smartest person in the world with the only correct view on economics, and he can never define what he's talking about. But another caller of ours found his YouTube channel, and I listened to his manifesto, and it makes no sense, so trying to pin him down on what his thoughts are. We can talk more with Skeeter in the next segment. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. More coming up.
Negotiation isn't just something union leaders and sports agents do. Your entire day is a series of negotiations. If you have young children, you know that. In fact, your kids can teach you a lot about negotiating with grown-ups. According to the world's greatest negotiator, Herb Cohen, author of You Can Negotiate Anything. Herb says that kids understand the process of decision-making within an organization. organization. When one parent says no, they'll ask the other. And Cohen says children persist and persevere. And like smart negotiators of all ages, kids know that no is an opening bargaining position. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're a job seeker. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at the week's top stories. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city and continuing to make their way south towards the country's third largest city. FSN's Trent Murray has more.
The Syrian military has confirmed that it has withdrawn from the city of Hama as armed rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham arrived, seizing control of the strategically important city. The group's push began last week when it launched a surprise attack, seizing the second largest city of Aleppo and large swathes of territory in the north. Footage posted online by the group showed insurgents capturing several military bases, including aircraft, tanks and weapons, which had been left behind as the army fled. On Friday, the group said its fighters were pushing forward in an attempt to seize the country's third largest city of Homs, which sits just 100 miles from the capital Damascus, where President Bashar al-Assad remains, as his grip over the war-torn nation continues to weaken. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
Police in the United States were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. FSN's Sally Patterson reports.
Officers from America's largest police force are yet to track down Brian Thompson's shooter. Police say the United Healthcare CEO was walking to the company's annual investor conference at the New York Hilton Midtown early on Wednesday morning local time. A person walked up behind him and shot him. Officers found Thompson on the ground with wounds to his back and right calf. Detectives are working on piecing together a timeline of the moments leading up to the shooting and have identified surveillance footage from across the city. Police have released pictures of a person they say is wanted for questioning. Sally Patterson, New York.
South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law on Tuesday. FSN's Chris Gilbert has more.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
From Bureaus Worldwide.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank Greg for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Greg went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Greg and everyone who supports us. And again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. Yeah, thank you so much to Greg. We really appreciate all of our amplifiers here at Free Talk Live. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Stu.
And in the last segment, we were trying to pin Skeeter down. I listened to his, I don't know if you call it a manifesto. Maybe that's only written, but he has a video on his YouTube channel. And so I played it. Actually, Riley was there too. We listened to Skeeter's basic laid out ideas of evolutionary capitalism. I think you have more words in what you call evolutionary capitalism, like maybe utilitarianism. What's the name of your ideology that we're discussing here, Skeeter?
Oh, evolutionary capitalism / utilitarianism.
Okay.
It's just it's a refinement of both ideas, right? I think inherently they're the same thing. Utilitarianism, pure utilitarianism, and capitalism, they're meant to be the same thing, and it was meant to be analyzed under an evolutionary lens. Because capitalism, I think,
is such a loaded word. Meant is a loaded word because it's like, maybe I want to be a capitalist, but I don't want to say I'll step on whoever and do whatever to get my profit. Why would that be
the value is
not
not
the way it's meant, and your way is the way it's meant to be?
Is any value
Because,
subjective?
Again, well, I'm talking about moral value. No moral value is subjective. Yeah, of course, preferences are partially subjective, but value is not preferences.
None of this answered my question either.
So there's your preferences and there's the preferences. So value comes from the preferences of evolution, you could say.
How do you define morality, Skeeter?
Morality is a tool given to us by evolution. It's a tool to help us align our actions and strategies with its goal, right? So the further,
actually, that's a pretty nice way to describe it. I think of you think of evolution as God. I call it God. I'm comfortable with that word. And I do think morality is something that can be discovered, and you could call it.
There you go.
The way you say a tool makes it seem like almost like it's like you use it to like get your way, but it's actually kind of true. It's like I don't harm other people, and then they don't harm me, hopefully. So I kind of agree with that. It's not the first way I'd describe it, but
yeah, it's really just it's just a way. I mean, all tools were given to us by evolution to fulfill its goal. You got to understand that. You may see, you have senses of taste, senses of sight. Now it's given us complex tools like happiness, a more complex emotion like happiness, and now morality and reason. And through game theory, we can perfectly understand what it's trying to help us achieve, right?
Can you explain what game theory is?
Game theory is like, so classical game theory is just an analytical methodology to analyze strategy, like the value strategy. So it inherently works with, it's a normative methodology that works with objective value and payoffs, right? It can recommend what to do in certain situations, unlike praxeology, right? Where praxeology just says, whatever you think of as good, right? This is the analytical framework of libertarianism, the nonsensical libertarian framework.
I disagree with that. I don't think that libertarians necessarily believe that whatever you think is good is good. It's just that you're thinking of things in terms of very specific actions. Like one person could say smoking weed is good. The next person could say smoking weed is bad. And libertarians absolutely agree with that. But the thing is, there is an underlying morality that libertarians agree with, and it's not ubiquitous. It's not, nebulous like you're describing. It is very solid. It's don't hurt other people and they won't hurt you. And that's why libertarians can disagree about specific actions. Like the Bible gives you all these specific actions you can't do, and that is silly. That's like a silly way to make your idea of objective morality. But I believe in objective morality in a totally different way than the Bible. Like, it is objectively wrong to be gay. No, it's wrong to rape another man as a man because he didn't want it. But that doesn't mean the action of like having gay sex is wrong, because if you both are, sorry for the graphic example, just the thing that popped in my mind. It's so you can't call an action gay sex wrong. But the thing is that action can be wrong when it's not, when it's harming someone else. Any action.
I'm going to cut straight through it to it, right? You can estimate the morality of an action based on how well it maximizes productivity of all of the universe, right?
That's just silly.
So
like, lots of things people do are not productive. and the fact that, like, let's use the example of homosexuality. It doesn't create a baby. It can't create a baby. But who are you to say that someone's happiness, having their lover and expressing love with them, I don't know if you guys hate this example, but versus like making a baby, who are you to say one is better than the other just because you would assume that evolution wants them to have like wives, women, and have babies?
Yeah, you can verify the immorality of a thing by the harm that it causes to a living thing.
No, it's the harm it does to total production of the universe.
Nope.
That's toward this perfect evolutionary being.
I guess you just think you're a slave.
It's to any living thing.
First, so now I forgot what I was going to say. What were you saying, Bonnie?
That how are you to know something is immoral? Like with the gay guys, like, well, it doesn't make a baby, so it by definition
it would depend on your situation, right?
Well,
so
I mean, it does if those guys really want a baby, right?
But that's up to
then
those guys.
Then it does kind of become immoral because you're not going to make a baby that way.
Well, then they'd be accepting. Sorry, hold on, Skeeter. I just want to address that. Can you hold on to that really fast, Skeeter? Because it's just
I'll try, but I'll forget.
Those guys, if they both want a baby, but then they decide I choose to be with this man over being with a man having a baby, it's not immoral. They're making a choice, and they're having to say no to one thing.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
So Skeeter,
choices don't matter, right? There's always natural selection forces on all our decisions that we make, right? Any choice we make, any action we undertake, any strategy we adopt, there's evolutionary consequences of natural selection forces.
So are you saying that you think homosexuality is always wrong because it doesn't create babies?
I never said that.
No, it's an example I'm giving.
It would depend on their situation, right? Some people are meant to have babies. The greatest people are meant to discover ideas.
I see. So your idea is that evolution gives people that they don't want to. Evolution doesn't want to create homosexual tendencies. Is that what you think?
No, it would. So if you, I would have to analyze where homosexuality might be productive advantage for a particular individual in a particular situation. Like I can think of instances where having babies is beneficial for that individual. Like people who discover ideas, they're not meant to have children. This is one of my little theories on the side, but it would be beneficial for people who are the smartest of humanity to not have children and not have friends.
We just found out Skeeter's excuse for not having a girlfriend or friends.
I knew you'd get it. But I think it's true. Like if just looking at the greatest ideas that have been discovered, I think this is why evolution has selected for Asperger's in a certain proportion of the population. In a small proportion of the population, it is beneficial because some people have different functions in the evolutionary being of society, right? Our economy, our society is its own being, right? This is why I say individualism is retarded.
That kind of contradicts what you're saying, though. In that,
say that again.
That kind of contradicts what you're saying. That people have different.
It doesn't contradict.
People have different purposes or jobs to do.
Yeah. How does that?
Because just
like organs in a body,
everybody ought to just be doing the most productive thing.
Yes.
Whatever that is.
Evolution always imposes selection pressures if you deviate from that. So if you do not maximize productivity, you are punished. You can just look at in economics and in finance and business, right? Businesses die if they're not profitable. It's the same thing in your personal life. Well, sure,
if they're not profitable, but what if they're profitable, but they're like, I'm going to coast here. I'm fine with this level of success, and I don't really want to spend every day getting more and more and more and more successful. I think that's closer to what Stu is saying.
No, it's still everything you do, even if you think you're happy, it's not up to you. Happiness, again, is another tool. It can malfunction, right? It's not a perfect tool given to us it's still being developed by evolution. Actually,
and that's where it goes back to the individual subjective value, though, Because
What's
that's where it goes back to individual subjective value, and you're just putting the cart before the horse, because there's no impetus to be productive about anything unless there's a subjective preference driving it.
No, look at. So here's what's wrong with Austrian economics, right? It all revolves on subjectivity and ultimate goals, right? Now think of an ultimate goal you have, Stu, right? Just think of one. Do you have a reason why you follow that, why you pursue that goal? You want to be happy, right? Did you choose to want to be happy? Or is that evolutionary programming? Is that a reflection of evolution's preferences? That's my claim.
I don't know, probably not, because I don't put happiness at the top of that list.
That's a good point.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you choose, what you tell me your ultimate goal is. You will have no valid reason to pursue that goal. You can't point to a rational reason why you're following that goal.
You mean
That's
without? You mean without?
You're confused.
You ever watch RoboCop?
I can have a valid reason without being able to quantify it, and that's where I think you're going wrong.
But I will be able to objectively quantify it.
No, you can't quantify everything.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. That is the big problem that humans are running into right now.
I'm arguing why, right? Evolution gave us the tool of money in order to help us quantify objective value. Now, money is not in its perfect form yet, right? So it's not perfect. So you'll have, it'll generate externalities, especially when money has privacy built into it. This is my argument. This is why I keep calling in sometimes. Privacy is not a function, is not supposed to be a facet of money. It's not supposed to be one of the characteristics of money.
Why do postmenopausal married women decide to change their hair color or do their nails?
You can analyze that under an evolutionary lens and how stable that behavior is. It's called, so I claim you can put morality in terms of its evolutionary stability. It's called evolutionary stability, right? That's what evolution, you can, using mathematics, you can predict what evolution's preference is within a given environment.
And when it gets there and it perfects itself, then you'll have the immortal being?
No, it depends. That would depend on if the environment's stable now. So this is where I come in. This is where my contribution comes in. I take evolutionary game theory, which is limited to biological evolution. I incorporate general evolution or universal Darwinism in this universal natural selection process. And now the environmental analysis disappears. I look at environments as its own being and how we interact with it in order to combine with a better being, right? So we can manipulate our environment, we can change it, we can transcend the environment if we have to, our local environment, to find another one in order to better fit with it. Hopefully it'll be mutually beneficial. And when it's mutually beneficial, it creates kind of like a greater evolutionary being. You kind of see what I'm saying? This is what we're striving toward, and it's not subjective, right?
Well, before you get more into it, because I don't think either Stu or I are really following. I watched your manifesto. I didn't really follow, but Stu found in the break, Lori told Stu that there's actually a jellyfish that, as long as it doesn't get physically harm, its structure doesn't get harmed, stabbed or something, it could live forever.
Yeah, they call this thing the immortal jellyfish because it can reverse its life cycle indefinitely. It starts as a planula, and
sure, it might. So our goal is to find the characteristics of this being and try to put it together, right?
Why?
And if you do not know those characteristics,
is it not already done?
A good substitute for that goal is to maximize productivity, so we can spend time to figure out what those characteristics
You subjectively
are and
value humans or robots over jellyfish, and that's the only reason we found a being that is never going to die, and you still won't accept it as evolution finished its goal.
You would have to look at. I don't know the particulars of whatever this jellyfish is, but I doubt it's ultimately stable.
It's not immune. It's not immune to death.
Right.
It could be chopped up and
Right.
killed,
So
it never has to die.
problem-
It could regenerate itself
leave it-
indefinitely.
So
we could leave it in a
biggest
tank
problem,
and take care of it,
the
and then
biggest problem-
evolution won, and we're done.
the primary problem evolution's trying to solve is this, entropy in the second law of thermodynamics, right? Does this jellyfish does not generate any entropy when it acts? That's what the perfect evolutionary being will do, right?
The other thing is,
So if
you're
it does
saying
not
that
do
is
it
evolution's
not
goal, but
perfect.
you have no evidence of that. All you know is that there are laws in this universe that have been going on since the universe has existed, and that they haven't changed, and for some reason you have decided, and that's what you have. This is what I really want to get at, and you haven't been able to answer. Why is something its goal other than how it's already set up? I don't think that the laws of the universe are evidence for the fact that you think evolution wants to change the law of the universe. That's not good evidence.
Yeah, so first we have the second law of thermodynamics. So we know there's this phenomenon of entropy, right? Every time we use energy, it increases entropy, right? And that's a problem
entropy
for
exists.
existence, right?
Well, not necessarily. That's your preference. You prefer that things don't suffer entropy.
That's a law of physics. We're
What's wrong with entropy?
We're agreeing that entropy exists. We're agreeing that entropy is a thing. We are all agreeing that entropy is a thing, but it's your subjective idea that it needs to stop existing.
Yeah, why is entropy bad?
Stop it.
Why is it a problem for you?
Because
are you scared to die, Skeeter? You don't want to get old. Is that what it is? You got a chronophobia?
Well, that's just an evolution. That's just an evolutionary instinct I can't fight, right?
No, I don't have that problem.
Preference for me to be, it's trying to incentivize me to be productive. All our instincts are incentivize us to be productive, right? It's to find our goal in this production process and to fulfill it to its maximum, right? Anytime we deviate, it'll try to correct us, and it'll refine our programming until we're perfectly aligned with its goal.
I think
I don't know.
That's what
Sarah from New Mexico has been quite lazy for quite a long time. No production at all, and she seems to be getting along just fine.
Well, that's because so you can have multi-level cultural natural selection forces, right? So she's in a system that rewards that, right? This is why I claim democracy is inherently unstable. You can analyze economic structures through my moral lens, right? You can see democracy, so it can support actors like Sarah, but it will take on the burden of the natural selection forces, right? Since a democratic entity loses money supporting people like unproductive people like Sarah, ultimately it will lead to its demise. And when that system collapses, Sarah will be in trouble because if she's dependent upon that system. And this is the poetic justice of evolution, right? This is why I want the fiscal collapse of the United States without endangering myself trying to steal its property, right? Like what you guys are doing. You guys are violating your own principles by trying to secede.
Don't you endanger yourself trying to... Whatever, I was going to bring up your mom's bedroom, but I'm pretty sure you're lying about all that anyway. But another thing I have to say is that lots of people who die and come back to life, lots of people who connect with spirits on the other side, they tell us that the ultimate goal, the most important thing is love. So, Skeeter, do you think that emotions have value?
No, actually, I think emotions have a net negative value at the moment.
I knew it. I knew that's why you want robots. Every psychopath says this, that robots are perfect because they can act, they can think, but they don't have to feel.
Yeah, I can do that too. I can shut off my emotions.
Yeah, people can.
It's not what I prefer, right? It's what I can prove evolution prefers using game theory.
You just told us that you believe that evolution gave us the gift of happiness. That's an emotion. And then you're saying that it is valueless.
Now look at when we're happy, right? It's always when we're the most productive, right? Either in producing kids that are productive or discovering ideas that are productive, right? That's when we're the most happiest. When don't you agree?
No.
Think about when evolution gives us depression pangs or gives us depression, right? It's when we're being unproductive. And when we get to a point where you're a net negative to society, it'll
can agree
give you suicide signals.
I can agree that people will get depressed when they're being not productive, but that's not the only time people will get depressed. Like, you can be going to work every day doing what you're supposed to be doing, but something like your boyfriend breaks up with you and then you're depressed also because love and emotions are real.
You know, some people's purpose is just to reproduce. The lower forms of humanity, their sole function is just to reproduce in order to have menial jobs.
I think that that's definitely the core of what Skeeter believes, is that he is better than other people because he thought of this idea and now he doesn't need a girlfriend, and he's being more productive than anyone else who's lower than him, and all evolution wants from them is you just keep creating workers. Skeeter's a psychopath, and he's able to live without love because it's so pointless, and he doesn't even care about his own mom. He doesn't pay her her rent he owes her, stuff like that. And that just comes right down to it. When I listened to his manifesto, if that's what you want to call it, I already knew he was going to claim that the perfect being is probably going to be a robot. And he didn't say that he knows for sure, but he's definitely alluded to it here. Something that can think and act, but not love, have emotions. And I just think it's obviously a subjective opinion he has, because most people will disagree and say, nope, I like my wife, I like my any kind of loved ones, my nieces and nephews, and I think love is more important than being productive. Like, love is more important than their jobs and things like that.
Well, and that's the thing, is that so many different individuals draw their happiness from different places, and you can't. Sometimes you can quantify it. Sometimes it's like there are some things that basically universally make us happy, but you can't satisfy everybody's happiness with any of those given things.
That's true.
And it's so subjective and on an individual basis that you can't collectivize it in the way that Skeeter's trying to and have any kind of productive outcome.
And I think if he found the right lady that wanted to date him and was able to experience that kind of love, he'd be, wow, I'm in shock. I can't believe that this is real for me. And that's why I think, like, the most important thing anybody can do is look for their loved one. Like, ever since I've met Ian, I've just basically thought that's the most important goal for every person. It's like, you can create even if Skeeter's idea was perfect and great, you can sit around in your mom's basement thinking up strategies or whatever he wants to call this, and he's not gonna ever do anything more important than meeting a man or a woman, whatever he's into, and finding love. He hung up. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160. And even Skeeter, I do believe, is worthy of love, and I hope he actually finds it. More coming up. You can call in with whatever is on your mind. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Free Talk Live. There's only one place you could have sex without everybody else knowing about it. That's in the bathroom. Unless you want to go back into the crew quarters, which might give you bonus points. The Mile High Club awards you, I suppose, based on the amount of times that you've entered into the club. Not only do you want to be in the club, you want to be the top dog.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be a premier member.
So I would think there'd have to be points for location on the plane, who you encountered with. Were you there with your girlfriend? Did you take her into the bathroom? Did you manage to get a stewardess into the bathroom with you? Did you manage to get the girl that you just happened to be sitting next to on the plane? I mean, so all of these things could be worth.
Oh, man. To be a part of the Mile High Club, what's the criteria?
You have to
copulate in the air.
Yeah.
What defines copulation? Who has to have an orgasm? Does there have to be an orgasm?
Or do you just have to stick it in and pull it out?
Is it just penetration? Bam, bam. We're out of here. Mile High Club, give me my card.
Yeah.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at the week's top stories. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city and continuing to make their way south towards the country's third largest city. FSN's Trent Murray has more.
The Syrian military has confirmed that it has withdrawn from the city of Hama as armed rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham arrived, seizing control of the strategically important city. The group's push began last week when it launched a surprise attack, seizing the second largest city of Aleppo and large swathes of territory in the north. Footage posted online by the group showed insurgents capturing several military bases, including aircraft, tanks and weapons, which had been left behind as the army fled. On Friday, the group said its fighters were pushing forward in an attempt to seize the country's third largest city of Homs, which sits just 100 miles from the capital Damascus, where President Bashar al-Assad remains, as his grip over the war-torn nation continues to weaken. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
Police in the United States were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. FSN's Sally Patterson reports.
Officers from America's largest police force are yet to track down Brian Thompson's shooter. Police say the United Healthcare CEO was walking to the company's annual investor conference at the New York Hilton Midtown early on Wednesday morning local time. A person walked up behind him and shot him. Officers found Thompson on the ground with wounds to his back and right calf. Detectives are working on piecing together a timeline of the moments leading up to the shooting and have identified surveillance footage from across the city. Police have released pictures of a person they say is wanted for questioning. Sally Patterson, New York.
South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law on Tuesday. FSN's Chris Gilbert has more.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, a new initiative by the British government to try and do something about spiralling energy bills. They're proposing to allow people who live near electricity pylons either to pay nothing at all for their energy or substantially discounted rates. It's all part of an effort to encourage people to stop causing delays to the construction of new pylons that are needed to expand the country's grid. The UK is poised to offer what the government calls community benefits to households in the path of electricity pylons, wind farms and solar arrays. Sam Richards is the chief executive of Britain Remade, a campaign promoting economic growth.
The reason why all of our bills went up by so much over the last few years after Putin's invasion of Ukraine is because we haven't built enough energy in this country. We're still reliant on gas for about half of our power, and about half of that is imported. So we're going to have to build a lot more infrastructure over the next 5 years. And I think it is reasonable that the communities that host this infrastructure should benefit from it. So I think the government's proposition, or what they're looking at now, is to be welcomed.
Not everyone agrees, and the governing Labour Party could face opposition to the idea from within its own ranks. The government is planning to build 620 miles of new electricity transmission lines by the end of the decade, a goal only achievable if planning delays can be steamrollered. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The week's top stories again. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city. U.S. police were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. And South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law. That is the latest feature story news. Iris.
According to a report released Monday, Americans currently lead the world in compressing big sandwiches into sufficiently biteable sizes, outranking countries such as Germany, Slovenia, and Ukraine in their sheer capacity to squeeze BLTs, meatball subs, and grinders into shapes that will easily and efficiently fit into their open mouths. Researchers pointed out that in series after series of tests, Americans consistently topped international rankings by implementing over 800 pounds per square inch of compressive force on sandwich categories as diverse as banh mi, croque monsieurs, or gyros, rarely hesitating for more than a moment before diving in and pushing the bread together and wedging it into their mouths.
Even in the cases in which Americans failed to sufficiently compress a sandwich and, say, dropped a stray piece of bacon or avocado, they still led the pack on quickly scooping up this topping with their hands and eating it, sometimes even inventively doing so with a stray potato chip or french fry.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And it's officially unofficial. We've been podcasting since podcast began, but we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45 minute show releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. This is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast. So check it out at freetalkcast.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Stu.
And we have a caller on the line, so let's go straight to the phones. Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it was probably the most painful Skeeter call I've ever heard.
Painful? I thought it was the best Skeeter call I've ever done. I didn't yell at him. I let him talk a lot, and we got a lot more information out of him than we ever have about what he actually believes. But what do you mean by painful?
The more you let him talk, the more painful it is.
Yeah.
It was headache inducing, and
because it doesn't really make sense. Ultimately, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's already hard enough to take him. Skeeter doesn't believe in intellectual property laws, so it's already difficult enough to take him seriously.
Well, it's because IP is stupid.
I don't believe in any either. Stu, why do you think it's stupid?
Because it's not. There's nothing stealing about copying.
True.
Yeah. Well, what's so if I'm a big company about to potentially put hundreds of millions of dollars into research and development to develop a product, and I know in advance that anybody could just copy my idea and sell it for 1/10 of the price on the same shelf in the store. Well, what's in it for me?
Maybe you should wait until it doesn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars to create something. That thing.
Well, it's research and development. I mean, you have to do research and you have to do development. and a lot of it is expensive. And
if a thing doesn't get made because the only way to do it is force monopolies and stupid games, then the thing doesn't get made. And that's
who's forcing a monopoly?
It's IP is it's a type of monopoly type situation.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You have if I create a product through research and development, and then my property is protected, and you think you have a better idea that's different, that solves the same problem.
No, if you create something,
who's stopping you from competing? Who's stopping you from competing?
If you create something, and then
you're not answering my question. Who's stopping you from competing in that situation?
The government.
Yeah,
that's the obvious answer. Just let Stu answer. Don't talk over him when he's answering.
So if you make a thing, I already forgot where I was going to go with that, anyways. But yeah, the thing that's stopping you is the threat of the government gun with the intellectual property law.
And besides, somebody should be allowed to have the same exact idea as you. Somebody should be allowed to have the same exact idea at the same time, by coincidence, and both pursue it. And they probably take different ways and make different risks, and somebody do it better than the other person, but oh well.
Yep, and the thing I was going to say about monopoly is that you're claiming a monopoly privilege over the thing that you've created.
It's like whenever people claim you can't wear a bindi on your head, you can't put a jewel in between your eyes and your forehead because it's it's cultural appropriation of the Indians. I find that so stupid because it's just a pretty cool thing to do, and it doesn't harm any Indians who also have bindis on their head for me to do it simply for style, or any 2000s celebrity like they used to do.
Yeah, and imitation is the purest form of flattery.
Yeah,
and I'm not mad at Led Zeppelin that they copied all their stuff from other people.
Well,
just because almost none of their music was original to them doesn't mean they didn't rock those songs better.
Wow, I didn't know that they copied people. Do you mean they actually stole?
Yeah, almost all of their songs are they're like basically a cover of somebody else's song.
And they didn't give them any credit?
No credit.
So it wasn't an actual cover, it was just stealing? Okay, I don't agree that it was stealing, but
if you believe that IP is valid, then yeah, it was stealing.
I just got to put it out there for listeners that this is why I don't think IP is stealing. Or sorry, this is why I don't think copying something like that could possibly be stealing, is because I believe that it is necessary when defining stealing, theft, that the person who was stolen from loses something. And you're going to say, they lost potential money. That's the same thing as talking about like hate crimes. Like, well, potentially they did it because they hated them. It's just, you can't base things in reality based on, well, what if I would have made more money? That's stupid.
You don't copyright the song, you copyright the recording. That's the way the law works. If Led Zeppelin's recording sounds different than somebody else's, they're not doing anything illegal, and that's what the law should be.
That's so stupid because
I'm just saying his point is moot. But here's the other problem.
I'm pretty sure you can talk about lyrics on top of chord progressions.
So the lyric law. There is a law on lyrics where you could still copy a small portion of the lyrics of another song, but you can't. And what he's saying
they got into all this with the Vanilla Ice thing, copying the David Bowie Queen song.
But my initial question still hasn't been answered. What's in it for me to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into R&D?
Nothing. Don't do it. It's a dumb idea.
To make someone's life better, if I know in advance that anybody can just steal my research and my development and create the exact same product and sell it for a tenth of the price on the shelf right next to my product.
It does sound like a bad idea. Does every single new thing cost tens of millions of dollars?
Of course not. Not everything does, but
then
a lot of great
maybe
things
just don't
do.
get into that.
Well, there are a lot of companies that want to. Why should they not be allowed to do that?
They are allowed.
And why should there? Huh?
Yeah, if you put money into making something and you want a return of value on that thing, then it's up to you to figure out how to get it. But if your way to figure out how to get it is using a government gun, that's just weak.
Well, you can think it's weak, but it doesn't matter because
it's wrong.
If there's no incentive,
yeah.
If there's no incentive for me to actually create the thing, then why waste my time doing it?
Don't do it. Don't make the thing.
Okay. That's stupid. Why would I not make it if it's going to benefit humanity and I can make money on it? The only thing that would stop me from doing it in that situation is the ability for someone to just steal my idea.
Hire all the people. If you have tens of millions of dollars, hire all the people that would otherwise copy you, and they'll be the people putting it into action.
Well, what if they say no? What if they don't want it? They don't want a job.
Also, you shouldn't have to be forced to make things public. Like if you're talking about just this is the secret recipe to Ozempic, like you brought up that Ozempic before, they could just not make it public, and people wouldn't be able to copy them.
And there are cover bands that play songs that are in the public domain, and they put on shows, and they make money doing so when anybody else could do the exact same thing. And whoever does it best gets paid the most.
It's only illegal if you steal the original recording of the other band.
You just said that there's a certain amount of... Well, I don't think what he's saying is illegal either, because he said it's in public domain. But even if a song is not in the public domain and I steal one too many lyrics, I should be allowed to do that. Lana Del Rey should be allowed to make her song that sounds a bit too much like Creep by Radiohead, and them not get anything for it, because even if she straight up said in an interview, well, I like this song Creep by Radiohead, so I stole their chord progression and made a totally different song that's better.
I agree because a lot like it isn't the law. It's stealing the original recording that you're not allowed to do. I went to media school. I studied media law in media school. They
brought an actual case against her for that.
Well, I hope they lost, because they don't have a case anyway in that situation, because the law is on the original recording. And by the way, that's the way it should be. The way that the government actually wrote the law in that situation is correct, and it's good. And see, this is one of the reasons why I left the libertarian movement, because there are some things that the government does that actually have their intended consequence, and there are not a lot of them, but there are some, and intellectual property laws are one of those things, including the incentive for companies to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into creating products that make all of our lives better, so that they know in advance that nobody could just steal their idea and sell it for the same price. For a tenth of the price next to that product at the store,
without having to do the initial research and everything. I understand your point, and I still think we're basically going in circles here, because we believe, well, just be more secretive about it maybe, or just take that risk, because you want to take that risk because life shouldn't be riskless. You take a risk every time you get in a car. Lots of people say that, but is it worth it to you to get to the grocery store?
Bonnie, there's already a lot of risk in starting a business. There's risk that it's going to fail. Yeah. There's risk that it's going to be not profitable.
Well, the government should stop that. The government needs to stop that, because it's the industry I personally want to get into. If there's risk to start this company, it's the one I personally want to get into. They need to stop that.
No, the problem is
that's how you sound.
There's already so much risk in starting a business, and now when you take away intellectual property laws, you're adding another layer of risk into starting the business.
You're not adding any extra risk that didn't already exist in the world, in the universe. You're taking away unnatural protections, and that's fine. There's nothing. You have not. This is the thing.
Correct.
You can tell us that you like things this way all you want, but you also have not been able to convince anyone that you are talking about something that is morally right. You're just saying, well, I want to be able to make a lot of money and get protection, but you're not explaining yourself as someone who is in moral right.
Hold on. I never made a moral argument about it. I'm saying the economics behind it is good, because intellectual property laws spur economic growth. That's always been my point to this, and it's good for the economy, and it's good for business. And then in turn, it makes everyone's life better.
You can only think of one example anyway. And besides, we've already said, well, there's other ways to get people to not find out what your plan is, what your research is. You'll just be more secretive.
But eventually, you have to put it on the market, and then anybody can pick up the product and reverse engineer it and copy it exactly.
Less than 1/10 of 1% of pop music has made my life any better.
Music has made my life amazingly better,
but it hasn't done anything for me.
Yeah,
So-
well, it's
so
still
how
a lot
is it
for me, and
justified
I
to protect
guarantee
that
you
with a
it's still lot
government
for
gun?
Bonnie, too. Speaking of which, Bonnie, do you think Ava Max is going to unseat Katy Perry eventually as the greatest pop star of all time?
No, because her thing that sucks about her is she just like won't get. The thing about Katy Perry is she's so incredibly authentic in herself and funny, and Ava Max seems to not even have a personality at all. She does way too many, what's the word, where you take a sample and not in a really interesting way. Like Kanye West is famous for samples, but he makes songs better than they were before. Like I think that about his song Stronger, that he sampled Daft Punk, but of course I like the Daft Punk song too. But anyways, I don't think Ava Max, I think she's already, it's too late. Like, she's already going to be in her 30s soon. Sorry, she's a pop star. Her songs that she's come out with have been great. I really like My Oh My, which samples, I forget what that song is called. Or is it even My Oh My? That's the thing. I don't like...
It's the Girls in France song that she took the melody from.
Yeah, I don't listen to her
which
very
is fine.
often, even though I do like
And she should be,
a lot of her music.
and by the way, intellectual property laws permit her to do it because she did it properly and she made that song better.
She should be allowed
And-
to. I don't think she made that song better, personally,
Yes, she
but
did.
I do like that. And also, I think she should be allowed to steal that, like everything about it, if she wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, she could steal as long as she doesn't steal the original recording.
No,
And
she
by the
could
way,
steal
that-
the recording and
that
just
song
sing
is
over
so
it.
old-
She
that
should be
song's
allowed
so
to.
old that- well, if that song's old enough that it's in public domain, then
Okay, then she should be able to steal Taylor Swift's song that came out last night or something and steal the recording and just sing over it, and she should be allowed to do that. I bet she can make it way better.
She can't steal the original recording.
She should be allowed to.
No, she shouldn't. She should. If she's going to steal the original recording, she should have to give Taylor Swift.
Well, in your
royalties.
utilitarian example of, well, it spurs the economy. Well, if Ava Max came out with a song that was a million times better than Taylor Swift's song and it spurred
It's
the
good.
economy, then I guess that's justified because that's where your justification is coming from for IP laws.
Yeah, war is good. It spurs
Well,
the economy.
If she copies the song exactly, and then she uses it in her own, if she copies the original recording and then uses it in a new song where she's singing over it, then she should be able to make money on it as long as she gives Taylor Swift some of the royalties on that new recording.
I think that's already the case.
Yeah.
If Taylor
I
Swift
know,
was to
the law
agree.
is good. The law regarding that is good.
But I
That's what
also
I'm
think
saying.
that she should, it's not like she's taking anything from Taylor Swift. I don't think that Taylor Swift would really be
Sure
owed
she is.
anything. She put it out into the world. She made a
Well,
song, she released it into the world. She didn't lose
Right.
anything. That Ava
Right,
Max
and-
added more to it and made it better.
Yeah, and if she takes the recording exactly the way that Taylor Swift made it, then she should have to give Taylor Swift royalties because of the art that she was able to create based on Taylor Swift's art. And
Every
really, Taylor
single
Swift
day,
actually doesn't
people
own it.
use
It's-
tools that they didn't put their intellectual property into making, and they do something better with it. Every day that somebody uses a shovel,
Yeah, but
they didn't invent the
song or a
shovel,
tool.
and should the shovel inventor be able to say, well, that gardener's making money over there, but I invented the shovel, so I should be able to get a little bit of the money. That's the same thing as Taylor Swift creating a thing,
No,
putting
it's
it out
not.
into the universe,
It's not
and you
the same.
saying that anyone who uses it to make money themselves is owed money. Or like Taylor's owes
I'm
money.
not saying that. I never said anything about a tool. I mean, Native Instruments.
I'm giving another
hold on.
example. That's what that is.
I'll give you a better example, one that's already in the domain of what we're talking about. So Native Instruments puts out sample packs once every quarter, basically, that they release into the world for a certain price, and it's recorded. But they specifically state when they sell the product that you are allowed to create new songs with this, and you don't have to pay us royalties with it. So what? So
That's
again,
not really
your
the same
shovel
as what
point
I'm
is
saying
moot.
at all. Like, okay, somebody has decided
it
to
is.
do that.
Yeah, why would they do
talk
that?
about it.
Why would they do that?
Because you're paying them money for the sample pack.
Oh, weird. So you're saying they found out a way to get value back out of something that they're just putting out there and allowing you to copy.
I'm saying it's a contract between a company and someone else that's saying, we recorded these. If you pay us money, You can use the samples, and you don't have to pay us royalties later.
And what Stu is saying, I think, is, well, shouldn't somebody be able to use that as their incentive to spend tens of millions of dollars to create something like a medicine? They could do the same kind of contract.
Because you're not given, so if I create,
and then the government IP laws would be irrelevant.
Because if I create Ozempic, what? I'm sorry. What was the question?
I was saying that if somebody made the same kind of contract as you just described with those samples, or
if there's a contract there that says you can take their intellectual property and do what you want with it, then that's fine.
Then you just answered your question from the beginning. You just answered, why would I be incentivized to spend tens of millions of dollars to create Ozempic?
Because not all companies do that.
That's their choice. That's a choice. They're not smart enough to do that.
Protect them. If they don't want other people taking their intellectual property, then the law should protect their research and development and their initial investment into creating the product. Otherwise, if they want to allow people to do it, then they can state it in a contract the way that Native Instruments sells me samples that I make beats with.
I just think it's hilarious that we answer his question and then he just, avoids acknowledging that. Just one way, like, if people get more creative, I'm not a business person, I'm sure there's even more creative ways to answer his question. And the main core thing that I think about this situation is just the fact that, like, you're not owed any sort of protection from anyone else. Someone else's labor, the taxpayers paying these IP lawyers or whoever it is, you're not owed that just because you exist in the world and you may or may not have a good idea that may or may not be worth spending hundreds of millions of dollars. You just got to kind of find out.
That's right. It's an entitlement mentality, and you just because you made a thing and you want to get some value back on it doesn't mean that you get to run to the big strong person in the room to make sure other people don't use your thing wrong.
Yep, and I'm not saying that Turd is a libertarian or something. He said he's not, but it's just like a silly utilitarian argument, like, well, the ends justify the means because it will spur the the economy. I mean, thank you for the call, Turd. Thank you for the call, Turd. Interesting conversation. I pressed the wrong button there. But I wanted to get a little bit back into this thing we were talking about. We never finished talking about it here. The fact that guy got killed, the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Did you have something you wanted to say about any of the IP stuff?
No, just that it's a really desperate and weak position to ask government to protect your ideas. If you want to make the world more beautiful with some type of art, then that should be reward enough. Otherwise, don't do it.
The other thing about it, I think, is just the fact that, so it's not that I think people are going to have that much inspiration to do something without getting paid to do it, but people do it every day. People make art and don't get monetary value in return for their art every day, so it's fine. Maybe I can agree that it would go down. I don't necessarily think that it would go down. But the other thing is that you're not owed some certain amount. Like, even if you think that what you are creating is going to be like the next big hit and it's awesome and you like it, it could bust. You could put it out, you could make $5 on it when you put $100 million into whatever it is, song or not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and if I made a song and suddenly it was made famous by somebody else and they made a ton of money on it, I think I'd be satisfied enough knowing that I made that song. I think I'd feel okay about that.
There are tons of one-hit wonders out there too. Like, not everybody wants to make more and more and more and more. Some people just get satisfied, and some people just want to make music for the making music of it.
Yep, but and on top of that, plagiarism is a different thing, and that's plagiarism. We've all agreed is not a good thing to do. So if somebody copies your thing and says they made it, then that's a different thing altogether.
I guess that is different. Like, if, in the example of Ava Max just claimed to have made this song and didn't even credit Taylor Swift as in say that Taylor Swift actually made the original, that would be wrong, but I also don't think she owes Taylor Swift money. I think you agree.
Yeah, everything's built on somebody else's ideas.
Yeah, that's so true. There's nothing new under the sun, is something the Bible says. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at the week's top stories. Armed insurgents in Syria continued to make gains in their lightning offensive, driving government forces from a major city and continuing to make their way south towards the country's third largest city. FSN's Trent Murray has more.
The Syrian military has confirmed that it has withdrawn from the city of Hama as armed rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham arrived, seizing control of the strategically important city. The group's push began last week when it launched a surprise attack, seizing the second largest city of Aleppo and large swathes of territory in the north. Footage posted online by the group showed insurgents capturing several military bases, including aircraft, tanks and weapons, which had been left behind as the army fled. On Friday, the group said its fighters were pushing forward in an attempt to seize the country's third largest city of Homs, which sits just 100 miles from the capital Damascus, where President Bashar al-Assad remains, as his grip over the war-torn nation continues to weaken. Trent Murray, Tel Aviv.
Police in the United States were still looking for the suspect accused of shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of one of the country's largest health insurance companies. FSN's Sally Patterson reports.
Officers from America's largest police force are yet to track down Brian Thompson's shooter. Police say the United Healthcare CEO was walking to the company's annual investor conference at the New York Hilton Midtown early on Wednesday morning local time. A person walked up behind him and shot him. Officers found Thompson on the ground with wounds to his back and right calf. Detectives are working on piecing together a timeline of the moments leading up to the shooting and have identified surveillance footage from across the city. Police have released pictures of a person they say is wanted for questioning. Sally Patterson, New York.
South Korea's defense minister resigned following the president's failed attempt at imposing martial law on Tuesday. FSN's Chris Gilbert has more.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
From Bureaus Worldwide.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160. 6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Stu.
And coming up, we're going to talk about just another example of how bad the healthcare is, and maybe it's one of these, things that they didn't cover for people that piss people off enough to not care that the CEO was harmed, but not claiming that's right or anything, but maybe that's why people don't care about his death. But we have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go to the phones. David in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, that's what I was calling about.
Oh, another example?
No, that shooting.
Oh, okay. What do you think about it?
There's probably bigger things to think about it, but I noticed one thing that I don't think anybody else has noticed, and I'm willing to make a prediction and risk being wrong, but to make a point about Gaydar. I think that dude is a gay dude.
Which one?
The shooter?
Oh,
the shooter dude.
Oh, okay,
I can agree. Dude, he could be gay too. I don't care. I don't discriminate. He can be gay if he wants.
I agree, and it's because of his beautiful smile.
Yes, exactly.
That's literally why. Because when I first saw him, I was like, I literally called him beautiful on Twitter. I didn't say hot because I was just like, wow, what a beautiful man. But it's not like, oh, that's my type. I want to be with him or anything like that. So I did think, it crossed my mind like, oh, he might be gay too.
Bonnie.
Ew, stop. It's weird.
Well, of course it's weird. It's me, and I'm calling into Free Talk Live. It has to be weird.
It has to be weird.
Yeah.
Almost as weird as Skeeter.
No, not as weird as Skeeter. Actually, in some ways, I'm probably more weird than Skeeter, but not in that way.
Did you listen to the Skeeter call?
I heard literally exactly 1.1 seconds of Skeeter's call.
Okay, I was just wondering. Well, what is that all? Did you have more to say about the CEO guy, or were you just calling to say you think the shooter is gay?
I was just calling to prove that gaydar is a thing, because all we see is the dude. Now, granted, he is dressed kind of gay. Okay?
Really?
So yeah. Straight dudes don't dress like that.
I didn't really catch that. All I saw was a guy in a hoodie and maybe jeans and tennis shoes.
I haven't watched the video.
No. To dress like that, he's either gay or he's a soy boy.
Well, another thing I wanted to say is maybe you're onto something more than you even know, because it would be a great cover to kill your gay lover and then put that that coded message on the shell casings that makes people think, oh, this was somebody, not his gay lover, but this was somebody who killed him because they're dissatisfied with healthcare executives. And then he has kind of a cover where it's like, you see what I'm saying? Like if it was his gay lover.
Well, that's how I do it. Every time I off an ex-gay lover, that's what I do.
Okay, so I guess I'm right.
You first make them a CEO of a health insurance company.
Well, that's the only type. That's my type. It's the only ones I date, dude. I mean, I'll date women that aren't CEOs, but if it's a dude, it's got to be a CEO.
Yeah, makes sense.
Got to have a certain amount of money in the bank to get with David.
Yeah. It's got to make it worthwhile, man. If I'm going to go gay, it's got to be for big bucks.
Gay for pay.
Right, there you go. Forgot all about that saying.
Yep, that's going in the notes. So, David's gay for pay.
Right. It's got to be big money, though, guy. I think CEOs, they're getting on the average, they're getting 10, 15, 20 million a year. So, it's got to be a pretty big chunk of that.
That's a crazy amount if true.
It is true. Look it up. I mean, you can, average pay of CEO.
Just CEO in general, not just a healthcare CEO?
No, well, in general, it's going to be a couple million.
This says small companies CEOs at small companies typically earn between $80,000 to $100,000 a year, while CEOs at larger companies can earn up to $250,000 a year. CEOs in the consumer industry earn the most with an average total cash compensation of $1,050,000. Other top paying industries include financial services, manufacturing, information technology, and media and communication.
Yeah, but they make more than that.
Why do you say that? Because that's just their salary? Oh,
No.
Whoa. Listen to this. It says in 2023, the average salary for a healthcare CEO was $11 million.
See, I told you.
Well, the median was $4.1 million.
I know my gay lover stuff, Bonnie.
Wow, you're so right. I just added healthcare at the end of the Google search.
There you go.
Because, I mean, you can be a CEO of, you have a gas station where there's only one or something like that.
Yeah, you don't want to date those. You want the healthcare CEOs.
It sounds like United Healthcare Group pays their CEO about $23.5 million annually.
See, that's what I'm talking about. See, that's why it could very well all be true.
Now we need to see if he has a gay lover in the will.
In the will?
Yeah, in the will he might have written, instead of my wife, I want my money to go to my gay lover, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but you see...
Then we'll compare beautiful smiles.
That would be a great fantasy, Bonnie. But
yeah, I'm such a good detective.
Right. Well, if you were a better detective, you'd have known that these guys don't have wills; they got trust.
Oh, so it's just like everything will be immediately handed down to the next person. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's predetermined. You can't leave anything to chance, like gay lovers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's see So it was the way he dressed, and then it's not only his smile. It's also I have figured out that with fair amount of reliability, that's the R word I'm looking for, that I can literally see, because you see the clothes can give it away, the hair can give it away, the mannerisms can give it away. But it sounds like a song, give it away. That was Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
But I have found that on a still photograph where the haircut, there's no makeup, the haircut is just a regular haircut, and the clothes are not gay clothes, that I can still tell with a high degree of reliability whether a dude is gay just based on his facial structure.
And how do you test your theory? By hitting on them and then taking them to your trailer? Wait, what is it? You don't call it a trailer, it's something else. Don't you have one of those shipping containers, or am I wrong?
I have. Well, one of the things I got a bunch of stuff, but one of the things I have is an oil field crew trailer.
Okay, so this is how you test your theory and know that you're right within 90% accuracy or whatever it is. Hit on them and take them to your trailer.
Exactly. Well, no, they got the money right. Remember, Bonnie, these are only rich dudes. I'm not doing it for no poor dude. And so, no, they got to pay the bill. And so we get on the private jet and we fly to Paris and stuff like that. That's what we do, Bonnie.
I have a theory that gaydar is a function of one of two things. It's either
survival.
It's either hidden homosexuality or it's homophobia. I can't tell which. I'm leaning towards homophobia.
It's actually. Well, yeah. I guess you could call it homophobia, but it's not really homophobia. It's. I like to say you got a rear end to protect. You want to be careful who you're stooping over in front of.
Well,
and it's not really homophobia. It's just that you don't like things up there.
Well, I think that it would be similar to, more on the lines of homophobia than really, in different people. So for me, I would say it'd be closer to homophobia, but I'm not literally, quote unquote, scared of gay guys or disliking gay guys. But my brain can immediately tell things based on the vibes of people, because I think my body is created to find the man that I want to be with, and I could just tell by certain mannerisms, oh, that guy is effeminate, bad.
Yeah, you don't be wasting your time.
Not bad as a friend, but bad.
Your biological clock is ticking. You can't be wasting time.
Basically,
yeah.
I think that is probably true, that it is like a biological function, and it's similar to Like if you don't see people's eyes making contact with you and you start getting scared, or somebody keeps eye contact too long and it's giving you scary vibes. And also we have built into us the innate ability to look and tell if someone's a man or a woman by like a split second.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's more difficult than others.
So Bob, wait, is it something Freudian that you're banging those fuzzy balls right now?
No, not banging them. I'm just touching the soft fur.
Oh, that's even better or worse.
Okay. Do you agree with our theory? I guess we're all kind of agreeing on this.
Yes, I agree. I entirely agree that you're on the right track as far as your thoughts about instinct.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely a protection mechanism, especially like women walking down the street, to really quickly see if someone's a man or not. And there's nothing trans or homophobic about it, and there's other little things that you can pick up on, like somebody being deranged just by a look in their eye.
Yeah, intuitive, sort of picking up on things.
Yep. I also completely agree, and believe in simply just vibes. Like, you don't even have to have eyes on them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, you brought this in, Stu. It's from Today.com, and thank you for the call, David, from New Mexico. From Today.com, that says, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. I guess that is a health insurance.
Yep, Blue Cross Blue Shield is a health insurance company, I believe.
It says, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield will not proceed with policy change that wouldn't cover anesthesia after certain time limits. So Anthem BCBS decided to not proceed with this policy change after widespread outrage, including one leading anesthesiologist group calling it a cynical money grab. So basically, they were going to make their policy 10 times worse and more kind of sadistic, and not cover anesthesia based on specific time limits. And we'll get into this, but there's an unscreened caller on the line. So unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey there. I wanted to touch base on the intellectual property conversation earlier.
Yeah.
So I just had a couple of points to make. The government already has exemptions for things like light bulbs and computers, where if your invention is just so awesome, it's instantly in the public domain.
Yeah, they also have the ability to slap a secrecy on anything you invent.
Yeah, they can
and tell
say
you you're not allowed to share it.
That's true with like there was this company, I don't remember their name because it was just an anagram and I'm bad at that, or not anagram, just letters, and I'm bad at remembering that, but they created this black box that they could take and put a picture of a bug and a tiny drip of the poison in this black box, and then they were able to kill all the bugs in a field with it. And the FDA went around following them around, proving that their stuff worked, or claiming that they were there to prove that their stuff works. So they were like, oh, this is great, the FDA is following us around, and they've seen so many success stories, they're gonna approve our patent, and this is gonna go crazy, we're gonna make money, and we can stop the use of pesticides. And they got slapped with secrecy, and they took their stuff from them.
Yep.
Without ever giving them the report they were lying that they were working on.
What's the name of that incident? What's the name of that incident, if I were to look it up?
If you guys keep talking, I can look it up. It's covered in The Secret Life of Plants.
Interesting. All right, I'll look into that.
Sorry, I don't know the name of the company.
No, that's interesting.
It's covered in depth in that book too, and it's awesome.
I also wanted to say, if one person is better at marketing a song or a drug, they should get the market share, not the original inventor who never brought it to market. You know.
That's a good point. If you created a drug and then you just sit on it and you just are like, yeah, I just sold it to a few of my friends, bro, I don't really care about money. And then somebody else does the work of making advertisements and, you know, putting things on shelves, going to stores and being like, will you carry this product? You're right. They've done more work than the person who just thought of it.
And also, Disney lobbied to keep Mickey Mouse forever, and now a corporation can own your likeness in perpetuity. Like, I don't know.
Wait, what?
Like, you can, you lose the right to your own likeness to a corporation, like if you do business with them.
Wow. Yeah. So that's, what you're saying kind of is that's kind of antithetic to the way that they protect people and quote unquote protect people with IP law. They're also allowing
if you sign a contract, I guess, what do you think about the complications of that? Like if you sign a contract where you wouldn't be able to market yourself outside of, like don't bands like sometimes lose the ability to use their name or something like that because of IP?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That is pretty creepy. If so, also, I really hope I haven't accidentally given away my likeness to Disney. Do you want to look into that?
One potential danger of the IP thing is recently they invented a new method of, changing people's bodies with this mRNA technology. So if they've rewritten your DNA and they can prove that they're the originators of this idea, then do they have IP claim over your DNA? And do they therefore own you?
Especially
your genes.
Yeah, because the idea is like, oh, you can't get protection for anything that already exists in nature, but if you like change it just by a bit, like
right.
Salicylic acid, I think it is aspirin basically, but they didn't get to patent just aspirin Bayer. They had to add something else to it, and I forget what it is. So it's just basically like a different prefix on the word salicylic acid. That's what aspirin is, but they were able to patent that.
Is there anything that shouldn't be in public domain? Like WMDs or something like that?
Nope. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So this is a different... I tried to quickly find the answer to who I was talking about, but this doesn't seem to be the right name. There was this other guy who used a very similar technology to get rid of bugs without pesticides, and his name was Hieronymus Machine. Oh wait, no, his name was T. Gallon Hieronymus, and he created the Hieronymus machine. So T. Gallon Hieronymus was another guy who created a similar thing. But either way, if you read The Secret Life of Plants, they cover both of those people. So that guy just lived in like Kansas, and he even grew plants in his basement by leading a copper plate that was outside down a copper, and then putting a copper cord on that and bringing it down to the plants. And he got sunlight energy to them that way without sunlight. So that's another thing that was created, but the government took away from us. Multiple different things with that guy, Hieronymus, T. Gallon Hieronymus. But I just tried to quickly find the answer to the name of the other box that was going to get rid of the use of pesticides, and it didn't pop up easily, and it's the radio, so it's hard to sit here and Google things and also talk. But I can't think of anything I think that shouldn't be in the public domain. I just think that government is basically like non-natural, and why should we add these unnatural protections that other people don't agree to that harm some at the benefit of others? Why?
Yeah, and I like the way that Ernest Hancock steelmans this intellectual property argument in saying that if you really want to do this right, you're just going to take a melon baller and scoop out that part of your brain that contains the information that you heard from somebody else so that you don't have the ability to copy it.
Nice. Well, thank you for the call, caller. I'm glad to get questions about other calls and have your input on other parts of what we didn't discuss during those calls. All interesting stuff. And anyone who wants to call in, there's still time, 603-283-6160. In this story about Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is a insurance company, it says that they reversed course on a December 5th policy change that would have limited coverage of anesthesia based on specific time limits, which led to outrage across social media from average users to government officials. And that's a great example of why we shouldn't have the government, making us unable to talk to each other on social media like Kamala Harris wanted to do. They can make change with peaceful measures by just talking on social media. Like your outrage gets heard by apparently CEOs. It says in early November, the health insurer announced it would no longer cover the full length of anesthesia during surgery if it exceeds a specific time limit. The policy change announcement gained renewed attention following the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which prompted widespread criticism of the U.S. healthcare system. Anthem BCBS said it decided not to proceed with this policy change in a statement Thursday. And now, Stu, did you bring this in because you think it is just actually immoral for them to make that policy?
I mean, it was obviously not a good move for them to, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to think that that's a good idea, that you just have a time limit on the amount of, anesthesia somebody can get during surgery.
Yeah.
But no, it's more about the fact that just internet outrage changed a policy.
Yeah, I like that too, because it's just like a peaceful way to do it. It's not like they went and sued the company. They changed the policy just with outrage. I love that.
Yep, no violence.
And I also agree that it's not that I'm not here saying, maybe a different radio show host might say, oh, well, it's actually immoral for them to do that. It's just like, it's their business. They can make a stupid thing if they want to. But one thing that does make it a little bit worse is the fact that, well, in the United States, sometimes you're forced into using one healthcare provider or maybe like two different ones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you get that many options. Whenever I did Obamacare before when I was younger, and the only reason I ever did it is because I did my taxes one year, and I'm looking at it like, oh yeah, I'm going to get back like $1,200, and then the last question was, did you have insurance this year? And I was like, oh, no. Wait, how many months did you not have insurance this year? I was like, oh, well, like all of them. And I just watched it like take my number of like maybe 1,200 and be like, this is 500.
Yep.
And I didn't know, or else I would have just answered it dishonestly, honestly.
Yep.
So that's the only reason I had Obamacare the next year, and it was the worst. Oh my God, literally the worst customer service experience I've ever had was with any of my, because I tried to change them. I was mad at one. That was a disaster. And anytime I need to call them, like one time they charged me $8,000 for going to the hospital when I just kept throwing up and almost passed out. All I did was get an IV, and by the next day they were like, it seems like you're fine now. You might have had food poisoning. And I got a bill for $8,000. And me and my boyfriend at the time were like, what are we even going to do? That's so much money. Like, what are we even going to do about this? And I called them, and it turned out they just accidentally entered something wrong, but I had to do like days of calling people to figure that out even.
Yeah.
And ultimately I just didn't pay it. I don't think that they finished. I think they just had to have been like, okay, we finally figured it out. Like, she's not going to pay it. But
yeah. When the natural cost of what they did for you that day probably was like $43.
Yeah, literally, because they gave me a saline IV and they watched me for a while. You know? So obviously that does cost some money, but not $8,000. And the thing is, maybe it's, well, the hospital says, well, it did cost us $8,000 because, well, it's because the government unnaturally makes the cost of things higher.
Right. Yep. If you could do a hospital in your own way, maybe it wouldn't cost so much.
Yep. It's been Free Talk Live. You can go to freetalklive.com for more. We'll be back live tomorrow at the same time. And thank you for listening. Peace.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks, by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants.